Having learned that I liked the maid, my father forced me to marry her. I was beside myself with anger, believing that she was completely unmatched by me and did not deserve to be my wife. To somehow vent my hatred, I did everything possible to make my family's life a living hell. I would deliberately bring other women home and kiss them right in front of my wife to humiliate her. But I couldn't even imagine that at the decisive moment of life and death, it would be she who would sacrifice herself for me. This incident finally made me wake up from my blindness. Now I want to give love to a person who is truly devoted to me. I will no longer allow anyone to look down on her and consider her inferior. I look at her sitting in the wheelchair and feel tears welling up in my throat. "Why are you crying?" she asked. "Didn't we agree that this was just a sham marriage?" She added that in a few days I could go abroad and do whatever I wanted, calling herself a loser who didn't dare stop me. My hearing seemed to be turned off. I stopped taking her words seriously, overwhelmed with guilt. I decided to erase all traces of our formal marriage so that she would be free. With tears in my eyes, I whispered, "Liu Ruyan, forgive me, you idiot." "What other debt?" she asked, raising her hand, trying to touch my face. But she froze, not reaching me, and lowered her hand. She knows that I don't like it when she touches me. I didn't hold back my sobs, I just cried until I ran out of tears, without feeling any shame about it. "Don't cry, Liu Ruyan is so innocent," she muttered, noticing that the soup had gotten cold and went to warm it up. She didn't dare touch me, carefully holding the bowl of soup, thinking that I had simply overdone it with alcohol. She didn't know that my condition was not caused by drunkenness, but by the pain of realizing how I had ruined our life with my selfishness. I pulled away from her abruptly and without saying a word, headed towards my bed. Hearing the sound of the wheelchair moving away, I sat on the edge of the bed, allowing myself a weak smile. "Liu Ruyan, are you leaving?" flashed through my mind. I realized I couldn't just let her go. "Don't go," I asked. "Stay here, we'll sleep together." I took her hand and a shock went through me, as if from a strong discharge. This blow pierced the heart, causing it to beat furiously, as if it wanted to burst out of the chest. My mind told me I shouldn't be greedy, but the intoxicating feeling of closeness made me say it out loud. I made room for her, trying to be careful not to crowd her. "Look how much free space there is on the bed," she exclaimed joyfully, as if she couldn't believe her luck. I invited her to lie down, knowing that she mistook my drunken outbursts for genuine love, and she clung to this lie just to be with me. She lay down, clasping the bed with her arms and legs, pressing her palms to her chest, as if she was afraid that it would all disappear. She was ready to do anything, just to lie next to me in the same bed. But I felt a huge gap between us, as if an insurmountable line had drawn between us. I took a deep breath and rolled over onto my side, facing her. She shuddered in surprise, afraid to even move, not knowing how to react to my closeness. My hands involuntarily reached out to her, but I stopped, seeing how she froze in fear. She caught my quiet sigh, and from this tension, without noticing how, she fell asleep. I looked at her sleeping, realizing how many times she had painted my image in her mind, while I remained blind to her feelings. The night seemed infinitely beautiful, and I could not close my eyes, enjoying the opportunity to simply look at it. But the night flew by too quickly, and with the first rays of the sun came the realization that I would soon leave to seek my happiness far away from here. When dawn broke, Liu Ruyan woke up, and there was a sense of guilt in her eyes, as if she had committed a crime. It turned out that late at night she quietly returned to her wheelchair, not wanting to disturb me. I watched her half asleep, and without hesitation she left the bedroom, pushing off from the bed. She returned to her room and watched the rain begin to fall. The sky turned crimson, and she whispered sadly how long it had been since she had gotten a good night's sleep. The soft bed where her scent lingered gave me a rare moment of restful sleep. After tidying myself up, I went down to the dining table and for the first time in a long time felt like part of this family. I remembered how much pain I had caused them all with my behavior after I was engaged to her. I was constantly arguing, refusing to eat together, forbidding her to appear in public. I broke the hearts of my father and aunt. Even my sister was afraid to look up at me, only stealing glances in my direction. Are you coming down for breakfast?" my aunt asked with concern in her voice, ready to serve me whatever I wanted. She also felt guilty for the pain I had caused Liu Ruyan in the past, considering me the main culprit of her suffering. But as a loving mother, she couldn't help but empathize with me, because she clearly saw how devotedly Liu Ruyan treated me. She tolerated all my antics, hoping that marriage would finally calm me down and make me get used to family life. My father, Pei Jian Guo, looked at me with disappointment, calling me a stupid ghost who still hasn't matured and doesn't appreciate such a gift of fate as Liu Ruyan. I was angry, but I knew that I was just used to acting like a spoiled child, and I felt ashamed in front of my father, especially looking at the consequences of Liu Ruyan's leg injury. There was so much warmth and care around me, but I, like a blind man, did not see this gold while my father looked at me reproachfully. Seeing in my father's eyes a mixture of hatred for my behavior and hope for the best, I suddenly felt a surge of strange devotion. In a rush of emotion, I hugged my father just like in childhood, and Pei Jiangyu froze in surprise. I realized that he wouldn't stop me from changing, and I realized how wrong I had been towards him all this time. "Well, okay," grumbled the father, "at your age it's time to become a serious person." I promised myself that I would no longer make scandals and would not burden my stepmother Lu Wan with my whims. I tried to keep a straight face, but I could feel Lu Wang watching my attempts to behave with curiosity and hope. I laughed to myself, realizing that I looked completely different in the eyes of my father and stepmother. I felt a pang of guilt for how coldly I had acted towards Lu Wan earlier. In fact, this woman treated me with genuine kindness that I had ignored for so long. My sister was also close to me, and I reproached myself for having been so callous up to that point, not even trying to show her the simplest attention. "Mom, don't worry," I said, "I'll eat with you." Lu Wan fell silent, and I saw tears welling up in her eyes. She smiled and whispered through her tears, "Ah, you just called me Mom." Pei Jiangyu, seeing his wife's reaction, was also touched. They were both amazed at how much I had changed in just one morning. Now that I'm married to Liu Ruyan, calling her mom has become more than just a formality, but a conscious decision. Auntie was so excited that she couldn't help but laugh happily, while Lu Wan quickly wiped away her tears, embarrassed by her reaction. Pei Jiangyu was genuinely happy, as if he saw in me the sensible son he had always dreamed of. He looked at Liu Ruyan with relief, not knowing that deep down we were still playing the role of fictitious spouses, planning a divorce in a couple of days. I went to this performance only for the sake of my parents' peace of mind, so that later, without hurting anyone, I could quietly disappear abroad. I silently looked at Liu Ruyan and, having made up my mind, moved closer to her. Seeing this, someone from the household helped Liu Ruyan roll her wheelchair right up to the table. I understood that she was uncomfortable being around me, and I tried to behave in such a way as not to destroy this fragile idol. I noticed that Liu Ruyan had barely touched her food, and this made me wary. I realized that she felt like she was superfluous and wanted to leave as soon as possible, afraid of disturbing my peace. I stood up, gently grabbed the back of her chair, and pulled her back to the table myself. Father looked at us with undisguised joy. If it weren't for the morning, he would certainly have taken out wine to celebrate our reconciliation. To everyone, this marriage looked like a success, but Liu Ruyan was silent, as if she had swallowed her words and could not take a sip from excitement. She must have thought I was unpleasant to be around, but I, the man who had once been stubborn and cold, was now ready to accept them all. Liu Ruyan, frightened by my attention, hurriedly finished her meal and quietly said goodbye, hurrying to hide in her room. I was shocked and saddened by how quickly she ran away, as if I were a threat to her. Zai Mu and Lu Wang made fun of me, trying to defuse the situation by calling Liu Ruyan heartless. They kept saying, "You don't pay attention, she's just so withdrawn." I just waved it off, feeling that in fact it was I who had made her so cautious. Pei Jiangyu's father, who truly loved his daughter-in-law, was genuinely perplexed as to why she was so avoidant of us. With each passing day, he increasingly valued her intelligence and business acumen, seeing her as a support for the family. Lu Wan whispered to her father with a smile that Liu Ruyan would definitely help me manage the company in the future. I felt out of place watching them make plans that I wasn't privy to. I felt like this situation would only create more misunderstandings, since I was still hiding the true purpose of my behavior. "It seems they have finally won my son over to their side," Pei Jiangyu said jokingly, with a hint of sadness. I remained silent, continuing to eat, afraid to say too much and destroy the world that my father had so carefully created. I turned my gaze to my sister, Pei Menjiao, who was sitting to the side. Until this moment, she didn't even dare look in my direction, fearing my anger. She only glanced at me furtively while I was busy eating, trying to detect changes in my mood. Seeing these timid, almost frightened gestures of my sister, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Menjiao always wanted to be close to me, but I, like a spiky hedgehog, did nothing but push away everyone who loved me. At moments when that is, I came closer, she involuntarily shuddered, remembering her aunt's instructions about what to be wary of in our house. My aunt always taught us that the appearance of a stepmother in the family is a harbinger of trouble, for which we must be prepared. At first, I didn't have such a strong hatred for Lu Wan and Liu Ruyan, being an only child, but everything changed when Lu Wan became pregnant when she was 14 years old. My father decided to keep the child, my sister, and this news literally drove me crazy, causing a fit of rage. My aunt's words came true, turning me into a rebel who demonstratively went against my father's will. I dreamed that this alien, my sister Pei Menjiao, would not appear in our lives, but I could not come to terms with reality. I still find her unpleasant, and I find myself feeling hatred, although Menjiao doesn't even seem to realize the depth of my dislike. Once upon a time in childhood, she still dared to call me brother, but my outbursts of anger drove her away from me forever. Now she only glances at me furtively from afar, as if afraid to come too close. I smiled at her across the table, trying to soften my gaze, but seeing how she fearfully hid her face in her plate, I only sighed heavily to myself. It seems that in their eyes, I will forever remain a ferocious beast, one that even Liu Ruyan would be unsafe to be around. My sister sees in me the very devil that I have cultivated within myself, and now I have to make titanic efforts to prove to them that I have really changed. After finishing breakfast, I didn't go to my room, but turned to Lu Wang with a smile. "Mom, I'll take Menjiao to school myself." Lu Wan, surprised by my proposal, agreed and headed to the girl's room. She sat down next to Menjiao, adjusting her clothes, and quietly said, "You will take you today," trying to call me by name in front of my daughter so as not to anger me unnecessarily. She had gotten used to my quirks for years, knowing how much I avoided communicating with my sister. "Okay," Menjiao whispered softly, bowing timidly, as if afraid of attracting too much attention. Lu Wan gently stroked her head and led her out of the room. "Well then, Menjiao, let's go." "I'll take you," I said, walking up to them and, contrary to my habit, gently taking my sister's hand. Menjiao beamed with happiness. She was too small to hide her sincere feelings. She couldn't take her eyes off me, amazed that I had finally paid attention to her. I felt so ashamed of everything that had happened in the past that I didn't know where to look from embarrassment. To ease the tension, I asked Menjiao, "What kindergarten do you go to?" But she remained silent, afraid to answer. "I'm in high school," she corrected timidly, and I smiled awkwardly at my mistake. "Sorry, I asked about kindergarten, but you're already a big girl." I tried to smooth things over, seeing her confusion. Not knowing exactly where to go, I decided to call my father to clarify the details. However, he thought that it would look stupid, and decided to turn to his wife, Liu Ruyan. Seeing my call on the screen, Liu Ruyan froze, deciding that it was some kind of mistake or hallucination. I had never called her before, and it was something incredible for her. She answered the call with trembling hands. I tried to sound as natural as possible, although inside I was seething with excitement. "Liu Ruyan, where does Menjiao study?" She clearly found it strange that I had suddenly shown such interest, and I felt uneasy about her silence. I explained that I was taking my sister to school and had forgotten the name. "Ah, right, Jiayang International Garden." Liu Ruyan explained the route in detail. Past the office building, turn left to the Longyuan Hotel, to the Jade Building, leading me by the hand like a child. I didn't even have to turn on the navigator, I just followed her directions. Half an hour later we were there, and I parked at the entrance to the garden. I opened the door, unbuckled Menjiao's belt, and carefully helped her out, hugging her for the first time in my life. She froze, not daring to move, clenching her fists, and her ears turned red from excitement and embarrassment. She still felt the warmth of my hands when I put her down. "Okay, Menjiao, run quickly." "Listen to the teacher," I added, lightly pinching her cheek, causing her mouth to open wide in surprise. She couldn't believe that this was actually happening. She had never seen such tenderness from me. I stroked her head, admiring her sweet, albeit stunned face. Menjiao nodded shyly and, almost stumbling from the delight that filled her, ran towards the school doors. She felt that her brother was completely different today, and a timid hope arose in her heart. She was ready to give up all her toys if only this day, so bright and warm, would last forever. Meanwhile, at home, Liu Ruyan rode out into the courtyard in a carriage, where she was met by Lu Wan. While cleaning the tea machine, Lu Wan exclaimed joyfully, "Zhu Yan, look, our Yu has grown up. The main thing is that he doesn't remain so withdrawn in the future." Try to spend more time with him, she gently coaxed her daughter. I'm sure he'll like you very much. She sincerely believed that rapprochement was inevitable. It was just that Ayu needed a little time to become the guy they were all waiting for. Liu Ruyan saw my stepmother's face shining with joy and didn't want to ruin her dreams, even though she knew perfectly well that I was just playing a role. She knew that I had started behaving decently only in order to lull my family's vigilance and secretly go abroad without arousing unnecessary suspicion. She took a glass of water, then pushed her wheelchair and, after seeing me off, returned to her business. I was about to go home when suddenly I received a call from my cousin, Zia Yu, and unpleasant memories immediately came to mind. The rage I felt towards this family in my past life was instantly replaced by a cold calm. As a family member, I'm used to taking relatives seriously, but my cousin and her father have always been a source of poison for me. For years, they had been telling me that my stepmother and Liu Ruyan wanted to take away our property, when in fact, it was my uncle's relatives who were plotting behind my back. I remembered my recent conversation with her and just chuckled at my own past stupidity. In this life, I became much calmer and, having accepted the challenge, answered the call. Zia Yu, is something wrong? I asked, and my cousin immediately launched into her venomous monologue about how unfairly my father forced me to marry a disabled woman. She continued to pity me, trying to convince me that my stepmother was an enemy and Liu Ruyan was just a burden. She didn't know that I could see right through her now. If she had known even a little about my feelings for my wife, she wouldn't have provoked me so openly. I made a decision. From now on, no one in this world would dare to offend Liu Ruyan, and I replied to my cousin, your news, as always, is clear but outdated. Don't you dare call her disabled, I snapped, and remember, she's my wife and part of my family. Zia Yu, on the other end of the line, was speechless with shock. I always knew that she couldn't stand Liu Ruyan, considering her just a stranger in our house. My attitude towards my cousin changed 180 degrees, and I decided to play along with her in order to expose her. Did something happen? Are there any problems? I asked, pretending to be unperturbed. Zia Yu began to make excuses, stumbling over her words, clearly not understanding why her cousin had suddenly changed so radically. I calmly replied that I suddenly saw true beauty in Liu Ruyan and that I did not regret our marriage at all. My cousin decided that I had simply gone crazy or become obsessed with appearance, not suspecting that I was simply protecting my woman. What should I do with you? She hissed, clearly angry that I had gotten out of her control. I just chuckled. Now that I have Liu Ruyan, I don't need to fear her manipulations. Zia Yu, noticing my coldness, became worried, deciding that we urgently needed to involve Jiang Ning to break up our marriage. Jiang Ning was just one of the fish in Zia Yu's pond, a tool for our quarrels. Don't give up, she insisted. Let me help you meet Jiang Ning. Let's talk again. I smiled mockingly. How blind I was before, trusting Zia Yu and taking her for a close person. I never thought about why she was so persistent in trying to set me up with Jiang Ning, mistaking it for her concern. Now I saw the two of them as nothing more than puppeteers who were trying to turn my life into chaos. The conversation broke off and I was left alone in the rain again, realizing that I would never let my wife go again. I was glad that I had Liu Ruyan, who was 100 times better than Jiang Ning. But in the past, I was so blinded that I didn't see the obvious. I hung up and, driving past a pastry shop, suddenly stopped the car. I knew Liu Ruyan loved sweets and decided to buy her something, but inside the store I saw a stormy scene. A man and a woman were arguing loudly about something, and I involuntarily listened. The woman screamed contemptuously, Su Yifeng, you're a coward. You can't provide for your wife, you don't let others help you. I was so naive to think you were worth anything. After these words, she trampled the cake with hatred and ran out into the rain, showering the man with curses. The man only smiled bitterly, wiping his face, as if he was used to such humiliation. At such moments, when a person is crushed and betrayed, he becomes most vulnerable, but also most valuable to the one who will extend a helping hand. I realized that if I offered him salvation now, this man would be devoted to me for the rest of his days. Su Yifeng was smart, even though he looked broken now, so I walked up to him and asked with a smile, Mr. Su, do you want to change jobs? Su Yifeng looked at me with a skeptical expression. My friend, he replied, you look too young to be a rich businessman. Are you trying to play a joke on me? I laughed. You're mistaken. I'm from the Pay group of companies and I'm officially inviting you to join us. The salary will be double your previous rate. I was confident that with his abilities, he would very quickly occupy a high position. Su Yifeng narrowed his eyes. Young man, you don't even have a business card, you don't even work for the company yet, and you're already making such proposals. He laughed and got ready to leave, considering me just another joker who didn't know how hard life was for the poor. He had neither the time nor the desire to listen to my empty promises. But I caught up with him. Mr. Su, you graduated from a prestigious university with a degree in financial management. Why do you allow yourself to give up like this? I didn't remember all the details of his biography, but I knew for sure that in the future he would become a great financial genius. Su Yifeng, I said firmly, this is your only chance to change your life, and I'm not here just to chat. I saw Su Yifeng stop and decided to press him when I felt him hesitate. Of course, I said, I wouldn't offer you a job if I weren't confident in your talent and abilities. If in doubt, just leave your number. When HR contacts you, you'll be sure it's real. Su Yifeng thought the call didn't obligate him to anything, so why not? Okay, he nodded and dictated his phone number. I remembered that Su Yifeng had a small son, about 2 years old, and decided to play on this. I handed him the dessert I'd bought. Su, brother, this is for your son. I look forward to you becoming part of our company. He froze, amazed that I even knew about his child, and thanking me, left in deep thought. I returned to the pastry shop to buy another dessert, this time for Liu Ruyan. When I got home, the first thing I did was look for my wife and asked Lu Wang, Mom, where is Ruyan? Lu Wan, seeing me, offered me some water, but I, feeling guilty for past grievances, refused and repeated my question. She began to fuss about with care, and I insisted that she rest, continuing to look for her wife with her eyes. That evening, Lu Wan said softly, Ruyan has been sitting in her room all day, take her for a walk. I smiled, of course Mom, I'll look after her. I went upstairs, knowing that Liu Ruyan was probably there now. When she heard me say that I would look after her, she was probably upset, taking it for simple politeness, but it was important for me to at least start with this. Approaching her room, I knocked. Julian, it's me, coming in. She didn't answer, sure that I was mocking her again or pretending, because before all I did was hurt her. I walked in with dessert in hand and saw her pretending to be engrossed in studying on the computer. What are you doing? I asked, but she chose to remain silent. I was pricked with jealousy. I didn't want her to close herself off from me, and I decided to act decisively. I put the dessert on the table. I bought it for you on the way. Would you like to try it? It's very tasty. She looked at me, and there was a mixture of hope and pain in her eyes. She didn't know that I was doing this to make amends before leaving. Liu Ruyan only felt a burning sensation in her chest, not believing the sincerity of my changes. She clenched her fists, reminding herself that she was disabled and had no right to expect the feelings of a guy like me. I'm not hungry, she replied coldly. You can have this. I felt the wall go up between us again, and I thought she was still angry. Liu Ruyan didn't even look away from the screen, stubbornly pretending that she didn't care. Are you mad at me? I asked. Tell me what I did wrong. She just remained silent, like a little offended wife, tired of my games. I'm not angry, please go out, I need to study, she snapped, not wanting to continue this conversation. She didn't want to see my attempts to please her, considering them humiliating. This offended me, and I said in my heart, oh, really? If you don't want to, then don't do it. Who needs you? And walked out, slamming the door. She saw me leave, and the familiar pain was reflected in her eyes again, confirming her worst expectations. Liu Ruyan chuckled to herself. Of course, it's AU, he's always hated me. She slowly rolled the stroller towards the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of me, but I suddenly opened it wide. I told you to study, why aren't you in your room? I flared up, even though I hadn't actually gone anywhere. I stayed outside the door on purpose to check her reaction, and her anxiety even pleased me. I heard the sound of her wheels and understood that she still couldn't get used to my attention. Why haven't you left yet? She asked, trying to hide the blush that betrayed her excitement. I'll bring you some water now, wait, I replied, not giving her a chance to object. I went down and then up again to pass her the water. She looked at the dessert and water, not understanding what was happening to me. She couldn't understand why I kept hanging around instead of leaving. Here, drink, I said, and now sit down to study. She obediently took a sip of water and returned to the computer. I came closer and started going through her things. We're married, it's not right for us to sleep in different rooms. I wanted her to understand that from now on everything would be different. Liu Ruyan looked at me in confusion, not understanding why I was rearranging her clothes. What are you staring at? Get studying, I snapped, trying to hide the tenderness in my voice. I understood that she was a woman with whom it was difficult to speak directly, but I was ready to endure her coldness until I melted the ice. If she realizes that I've decided to move her into my room permanently, I wonder if she'll be able to remain as calm as she is now. I was determined. I moved all of Liu Ruyan's clothes and personal belongings to my room, leaving only the books and computer in her former bedroom. Deep down, I had already decided that this room would become our shared office. Liu Ruyan looked at the empty shelves of the closet, not daring to ask a single question, while I arranged everything in my own way. After finishing with her things, I moved my books and small items into her old room, freeing up space for both of us. Liu Ruyan silently watched my movements, and I could see how sad she was to part with her personal space. This realization made my heart clench, but I couldn't back down. "Couldn't you just live in the next room?" flashed through my mind, but I immediately stopped myself, forbidding myself to be angry at my own decisions. After lunch, I packed a lunch box for my father and headed to the office, determined to tell him about Su Yifeng. As soon as I entered the office, I heard the voices of my father and uncle coming from behind the door. The uncle again tried to beg a large sum of money from the father. I remembered how in the past, due to a similar project that failed, my uncle got into debt, which led to huge problems. In that life, my father refused due to financial difficulties, but my uncle did not calm down. My uncle accused my father of deliberately refusing him and used this to turn the family against us, forcing my father to sell the company to pay off his debts. Then, as a child, I believed this lie and sincerely hated my stepmother, considering her to be guilty of all the troubles. My father sacrificed everything, sold his business to save his uncle, and he ended up founding his own Zia group of companies. After that, my uncle's family, using our connections, made their way into high society, continuing to suck resources out of the pay group. I swore that in this life I would never again give my uncle the slightest chance of such betrayal. They turned out to be ungrateful people, and I will no longer allow them to take advantage of my father's kindness. I waited for uncle to leave the office, and as soon as he disappeared, I went inside, seeing Pei Jianguo sighing heavily. I placed a box of food and clothes I had brought from home in front of him and asked, "Dad, what's bothering you so much?" "Ah, you, what brings you to me?" Pei Jianguo put the documents aside and smiled sincerely. "I know you haven't eaten all day, so I brought you lunch," I said, placing the box on the table. My father looked at me with undisguised surprise. He clearly did not expect such care after all my previous antics. "Dad, why are you looking at me like that? Come on, eat," I urged him, trying to hide my embarrassment. Pei Jianguo put down his chopsticks, realizing that I wasn't just bringing food. I wanted to show that I supported his decision to refuse his uncle money. Did you come here because of your uncle's words?" he asked cautiously. I pretended to be angry. "What are you talking about? Do you really think I'm going to let him manipulate you for his own gain?" Dad let out a sigh of relief, and I quickly changed the subject, telling him about my proposal to hire Su Yifeng. Pei Jianguo listened to me carefully and laughed. "If you think he's worth it, then so be it. It's gold that's sure to shine if you give it a chance," he added, finally taking my side. I was happy. For the first time in a long time, my father trusted my choice. "Thank you, Dad. You'll see more than once that I can see right through people," I promised. "Then why did you treat Liu Ruyan badly for so long?" he asked suddenly, confusing me. "I understand everything, Dad. I will treat her well," I replied firmly, and Pei Jianguo nodded approvingly. Meanwhile, Liu Ruyan was looking for her clothes that I had moved, and when she couldn't find them, she returned to her empty room in confusion. She was racking her brains trying to figure out where all her things could have gone while I was away. After dinner, my father called the HR department to invite Su Yifeng for an interview, and I went home with peace of mind. When I returned, I found that I had a lot of things to do, so I decided to take 3 days off. I needed to prepare for school because in my past life I was too stupid to take finance seriously. I was going to study financial management so that I would not make the mistakes of the past again. Before, I wasted time on Jiangning and ignored important things, but now everything will be different. Liu Ruyan was sitting in her room, waiting for me to come, but I deliberately delayed, giving her the opportunity to take a step forward herself. Suddenly, I heard her coming down to get a drink of water. Lu Wan asked her something in surprise, but Liu Ruyan, without saying a word, walked towards the water and seemed to have stumbled. She was sure that I was still upstairs and did not expect to meet anyone downstairs. "Didn't Mom send you some water?" Lu Wan asked, but Liu Ruyan remained silent. She stood there in the darkness, unable to utter a word, lost in her thoughts. She felt Liu Wan's gaze on her, but she remained silent, clearly deep in thought. Liu Ruyan has an excellent memory, and I couldn't understand why she was acting so absent-mindedly now. I watched her with interest from the shadows. I looked through the textbooks, but as someone who dropped out of school early in my past life, I understood little of the intricacies of financial management. I died at the age of 30, and over the years I had managed to forget everything that I had once been taught in college, so everything seemed like a dark forest to me. I walked into Liu Ruyan's room and started to look through the books I had sent her earlier, feeling her gaze on me. She kept her eyes on me, watching my every move, and when I turned around, our eyes met. I came closer, leaning down to her very face, and asked with a smile, "Are you looking so carefully, as if you are looking for something on my face?" Her features, which I remembered so well, seemed even more fragile. I could feel her breath and the warmth emanating from her, and we found ourselves frighteningly close to each other. The air between us seemed to become thick. She could barely breathe, caught off guard by this sudden closeness. My own heart began to beat wildly when I saw her ears turn red. It was a revelation, as if I had discovered a new, hidden side of her shyness. "Why are your ears so red?" I smiled and on impulse decided to touch her hand. Liu Ruyan looked stunned, and when I took her hand, she flinched in surprise and squeezed my hand back. I surprised myself with my own courage, wondering, does she really have tenderness for me, or is it just a game? She lowered her head, whispering, "I'm sorry, Ayu, I didn't mean to disturb you, I shouldn't have touched." Only now did I realize how deeply the fear of my anger lay within her. She was afraid of even an accidental touch, expecting me to flare up. "I'm not angry," I replied softly, "and you have nothing to apologize for. I'm glad about that." She looked up, trying to see the lie in my eyes, and not finding it, she visibly relaxed. I continued to hold her hand, feeling it tremble, and asked, "Were you in pain all this time when I treated you so badly?" At that moment, a connection seemed to form between us, erasing the emptiness and misunderstandings of past years. She was silent, lost in her thoughts, and I had to wave my other hand in front of her to bring her to her senses. Liu Ruyan shuddered, abruptly pulled her hand away, and pressed herself into the wheelchair, as if she herself was frightened by this closeness. "It's okay," I hastened to reassure her. "In the future you can touch me whenever you want, I give you permission." With these words, I lightly touched her cheek with my lips and without waiting for an answer left the room, leaving her in confusion. Liu Ruyan remained sitting in the darkness, carefully touching with her fingers the place on her face where I had just kissed her. Time dragged on slowly until evening came, and it was time for dinner. Little Pei Menjiao ran up to me, and I, feeling relieved by this childish simplicity, hugged her. I shouted towards Liu Ruyan's room, "Ruyan, it's time for dinner," but there was silence in response. Pushing the door open, I found the room still dark. It hadn't moved since I left. I realized that she was still digesting my words and that sudden kiss. Can I really change her attitude towards me? I thought with a grain of doubt. I walked up to her and playfully kissed her on the back of the head, causing her to shudder and finally wake up from her thoughts. She was shocked. "Ayu, did you really just do it again?" Fortunately, the darkness hid her burning face, and she was grateful to the night for this veil. I just smiled mysteriously, not answering her silent question. "It's time to eat, let's go," I said and flicked the switch, filling the room with bright light. I managed to cover little Menjiao's eyes with my hand so that the harsh light wouldn't hit her eyes. "Brother, why did you do this?" my sister asked, and I just smiled slyly. "I was just protecting your eyes so you wouldn't go blind from the surprise," I replied. Menjiao immediately grabbed me. "Brother, can I sit next to you?" Of course, I sat her down on a chair and began to help her with dinner. Our mother looked at this scene with warmth. Menjiao had always been drawn to me, no matter how cold I had acted before. She literally grew, looking at me with adoration, like a flower turning towards the sun. Seeing this, Lu Wan was also filled with happiness, watching the ice in our family crumble. The father laughed contentedly, seeing how his daughter and son were finally getting along. He always dreamed of us being one happy family. We all started sharing dishes, showing concern for each other. Menjiao pushed a plate towards me. "Brother, I want this, please." I smiled. "What else do you want, little princess?" She happily began listing everything she wanted to try. Mom became worried. "That's enough, you don't spoil her, otherwise she'll burst." Menjiao pouted, unhappy that they were trying to restrict her food intake. Mom laughed, looking at us, and added, Okay, let your brother decide for himself what you can do." Menjiao, pleased with her small victory, began to eat with gusto, forgetting all her grievances. I watched with a smile as my little sister worked diligently with a spoon. Such a picture could not help but evoke tenderness in me. Liu Ruyan sat at a distance, quietly eating her dinner, and carefully watched my interaction with Menjiao. She was clearly puzzled. Why had I suddenly become so kind to a child whom I had previously ignored or even pushed away? A painful thought flashed through her mind. Maybe he's trying so hard to be good for the family only because he's soon going to leave forever. At this thought, her face turned pale and something inside her seemed to snap, bringing a sharp, almost physical pain. What else could she hope for? My sudden change seemed to her merely preparation for farewell, which made her feel even more depressed. She tried to rationally explain my behavior, but her heart refused to believe in cold logic. Having gathered her strength, Liu Ruyan returned to her calm mask as Pei Menjiao happily announced that she had finished dinner. I patted Menjiao on the head and sincerely praised her. Good girl, you ate every last grain of rice. After eating, my little sister, as usual, reached for the textbooks that I gave her, without parting with them for a minute. Half an hour later, Lu Wan came in. Menjiao, stop tormenting your brother. It's time to go to the bathroom and sleep. My sister was pouting. She didn't spend enough time with me. Lu Wan firmly took her hand and led her out of the room, not giving the girl a chance to object. As she was leaving, Menjiao turned around and whispered, hugging me around the neck. Brother, you'll be back tomorrow, right? There was fear in her eyes that I would again become cold and alien, as I had been all this time. My nose stung at her words. I realized she had been clinging to me all night, afraid that I would hate her again tomorrow. I laughed, trying to sound confident. Of course I'll come back. We'll always play together from now on. Menjiao calmed down and she and her stepmother left, and I went to the bathroom to wash away the stress of the day. Meanwhile, Liu Ruyan was in despair in her room. Her clothes had disappeared and her usual things were nowhere to be found. She didn't know where I had moved everything and felt completely lost in the house. Did he really throw out my things? She thought. Maybe he's angry because we slept in the same bed. She felt left out and alone, sitting in her room in complete ignorance. I, having taken a shower and put on my favorite pajamas, headed straight to her room. When I opened the door, I saw her sitting in a wheelchair, looking out the window, and she exuded such loneliness that my heart sank. I wanted to surprise her, but because of Menjiao, time was lost, so I just came up from behind and gently hugged her neck. She shuddered at my sudden touch and the smell of shower gel. Her body went limp, she froze, afraid to even move under my hand. You let me go, she whispered, inhaling my scent, although she knew that according to the rules of this house she was not allowed such closeness. I didn't let go, and she felt how her heart, which she had tried to freeze for so long, began to beat at a frantic pace. I didn't wait for her words, but simply turned her chair around and wheeled her into my room. She was in complete disarray, allowing me to carry her as if she had lost the will to resist. I brought her to my bedroom and put her things on the bed. This is your room now. I left her no choice, literally forcing her into the bathroom, and I took it upon myself to arrange everything as it should be. At last there was some semblance of silence in the house, although I was incredibly excited. I knew we were going to sleep together tonight, and that thought made me nervous. In my past life, I was only close with Jiang Ning, but it was a fake, consumerist relationship. I used to think that she valued me, but in reality, she was just using me while she was loyal to Xia Yu. Now I understand, if they love each other so much, I will give them a chance to be together. I will fulfill their wishes in full. Liu Ruyan sat in the bathroom, clutching her clothes in her hands, completely confused about my intentions. If I want to stay here for my parents, shouldn't I just let her live her life? I thought. Liu Ruyan was confused. She couldn't tell whether I was playing with her or whether my feelings had finally become sincere. I knocked on the bathroom door. Zhuyan, are you okay? What took you so long? She didn't answer, and I started to worry. Had something happened? I'm fine, I'll be right out, she responded, deciding that the only way was to trust me. After a while, the door opened and she came out of the bathroom, looking incredibly peaceful after her shower. I looked at her. She seemed to me the most beautiful woman in the world in this evening twilight. I rolled her over to the bed. Lie down first and I'll go rinse off. I went into the bathroom, but I didn't intend to linger long. I just wanted to give her time to get used to the idea of us being close. Having deliberately flushed the toilet, I quickly left so that she wouldn't have time to close herself off from me completely. I climbed onto the other side of the bed and, after exchanging a few words with her, turned off the light, plunging us into saving darkness. After the lights went out, Liu Ruyan lay in bed with her hand pressed to her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. In the darkness, her vision was of little help, but her sense of smell was heightened. she was surrounded by the subtle, fresh scent of my perfume after the shower. I moved carefully, trying not to scare her, and felt how she held her breath. At that moment, it seemed to me that she herself wanted to remain in this silence forever. I couldn't sleep thinking about the future. Liu Ruyan is my wife and divorce is out of the question. I firmly decided that we will definitely become a true, loving couple. To avoid being tormented by doubts, I simply turned on my side, pulled her towards me, and hugged her. Liu Ruyan shuddered as if she had been caught in the embrace of an iron wall, and her body instantly went limp, losing all resistance. Thoughts flashed through her head. You hated me. Why is he suddenly so gentle? What should I do now? My mind kept telling me to push me away, but my heart treacherously begged me to stay in this warmth, refusing to miss the moment. Finally overcoming her fear, Liu Ruyan timidly hugged me around the waist, feeling completely safe for the first time in a long time. She waited until my breathing became regular to make sure I was asleep, and only then did she allow herself to press closer. In my sleep, I accidentally moved, and she recoiled in fear, returning her hands to a safe position in front of her chest. The next morning, Pei Menjiao woke up before everyone else. She ran into my room, worried that I had caught a cold during the night. She opened the door and froze. Her eyes were met with the image of me sleeping peacefully in Liu Ruyan's arms. Liu Ruyan, noticing the girl, made a sign for silence, and she, embarrassed, hurriedly retreated. Later, Menjiao, still reeling from what she had seen, said to her mother, "Mom, I want to sleep with Brother Au tonight." Lu Wan, knowing that I had finally mended my relationship with my wife, shook her head. "No, you'll disturb my brother's rest." Pei Menjiao pouted. "Then why can Sister Ruyan sleep with him but I can't?" Lu Wan froze in surprise. "What did you say? They sleep together?" An incredible look of relief and joy appeared on my mother's face. Had I finally accepted Liu Ruyan? She explained to her daughter as best she could. "Menjiao, brother and sister, are a couple just like me and Dad. They're married, so they should sleep together. They have a great relationship now." Of course, she didn't want her sister to interfere with our rapprochement. Pei Menjiao, even though she was a child, understood the logic. "Then I want to marry my brother too." Lu Wan laughed as she patted her head. "Silly girl, you can't marry your brother, that's not how it works." Menjiao, not understanding the subtleties, simply nodded obediently. Meanwhile, upstairs, I woke up and discovered that Liu Ruyan had been awake for a long time and was watching me. I laughed. "Have you been awake for a long time?" Her voice sounded pure and quiet. In fact, she had barely slept all night, afraid to move for fear of disturbing this fragile idol. "It's already 7 in the morning, time to get up," she replied. I felt like she was a little embarrassed by our marital role, and I couldn't resist teasing her a little. I leaned over and kissed her on the cheek, and when I saw how crimson her ears turned, I laughed and added another kiss. She looked so innocent and defenseless that I couldn't resist the urge to bring her out of this stupor. Liu Ruyan's heart began to tap dance again. She always gave in so easily to my caresses, and I went to wash up, feeling victorious. She also stood up and headed to the bathroom, and without thinking twice, I looked in after her. I saw her maneuver deftly in her chair, getting ready to change. She hardly went out in the sun, so her skin was unnaturally pale, but in the morning light she seemed to me the most beautiful girl in the world. But as soon as I saw her move gracefully, getting ready to change her clothes, my gaze was drawn to her. I didn't expect that she was so beautiful. She blushed when she noticed me looking and, covering herself with her hands, said, You're acting like a hooligan." I just chuckled. "We're married, what are you so afraid of?" and coming closer, lightly touched her shoulder. She grabbed the clothes in a panic and, not paying attention to the buttons, rushed to throw them on herself, almost getting tangled in the fabric. "I'm going to do the laundry," she blurted out and tried to drive past me, hiding her burning face. It seemed like I had finally found the way to her heart, even if I had to play the role of the bully to do it. "Oh, wife, is this hooliganism?" I put on a white shirt, feeling a surge of energy. As I left the dressing room, I slowed down and an idea came to me. I called out to her, "Julian, help me with the buttons on my shirt, I'm running late." She pulled up and I deliberately left my shirt open, showing off my abs, causing her hands to shake slightly as she tried to button me up. She closed her eyes, trying to cope with the task, but out of excitement she only tightened the button even more and accidentally tore it off. She froze, clutching the torn button in her fist, and horror was visible in her eyes, as if she had committed a crime. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw her scared face. She was so embarrassed that she was ready to sink into the ground. "It's okay," I reassured her. "Today we're going to the store to buy a new shirt, and You'll be punished by spending the whole day with me. I smiled. Let's go to the mall since you ruined my thing. Liu Ruyan, who always listened to my words, responded, I have business this afternoon, but I will go to the mountains with you. With these words, he rolled out his wheelchair. I could see he wasn't eager to leave the house, but he decided to join me anyway. I'm sure many would judge him for this. He still can't come to terms with his situation. It seems that getting him out of this state won't be easy. We'll have to take it gradually. I had absolutely no time to pop into the restroom. I quickly changed and hurried downstairs. Pei Menjiao was already waiting for me at the table. Noticing my appearance, she turned and fixed her bright eyes on me. I approached them with a smile. By the time I sat down next to them, breakfast was already coming to an end, and suddenly Pei Menjiao blurted out, Brother, marry me. This girl stunned me. I was so shocked that I couldn't help but ask out of pure curiosity, why did you suddenly decide to marry your brother? Pei Menjiao replied with complete seriousness, because I want to sleep with my brother. And since I married you, that means I can sleep with my sister Ruyan too. I choked on the milk I was just drinking. Pei Jiangguo, hearing her daughter's words, also noticeably became embarrassed. The girl was hinting that Liu Ruyan and I were sharing a bed. It was a good sign, even though it was said so bluntly. I desperately wanted to sink into the ground. We did sleep in the same bed, but discussing it at the dinner table was the height of awkwardness. Liu Ruyan kept his eyes fixed on me all night, remaining silent, but I noticed his ears turn red when he realized I'd been aware of his gaze the whole time. I felt terribly ashamed. Liu Ruyan bit his lip, trying to hide his embarrassment. An awkward silence hung in the air, and I quickly turned to my food, trying not to look at my father and Pei Jiangguo. I tried to act casual, showing that everything was fine. Jai Mu Luan began to hurry Pei Menjiao, reminding her that it was time to get ready for school. After dropping my sister off at her classes in the morning, I returned home with Jai Mu Luan to study the US markets. Luven didn't show any undue emotion. I thought yesterday's conversation was just an exchange of ideas, and I didn't expect him to actually come here. He is a man of the old school, a conservative who is not at all concerned with the excesses that are typical of rich people. Before meeting my father and Pei Jiangguo, she lived the life of an ordinary single mother. Now that I had gotten used to his presence, I could see that Luven was quite pleased with what was happening. Meanwhile, on the second floor of the villa, Liu Ruyan was looking through the information on the computer about the very shirt I was wearing this morning. Although he didn't go shopping with me, he offered to pay the bill himself, so I chose something I really liked. He soon discovered that this dress was the latest from a foreign brand. It was only available on a foreign website, and Liu Ruyan ordered it for me. At the milk tea cafe, Tang Dai and Zia Yu tried to persuade the girls, help me convince Aya. My father's company is in danger and I need my uncle's support. What if I tell him this when we meet, and what if you don't want to help me? Zia Yu feigned innocence in front of Jiang Nai, and then, without moving, she portrayed me as the villain. Jiang Nai took Zia Yu's hand, pain evident on his face. Okay, I'll help you again, he relented. I saw it, but I couldn't accept it. He knows that there is a place in my heart only for him. Jiang Nai, thank you, I knew you were the best, Zia Yu exclaimed, adjusting her shiny hair. Jiang Nai was sure Zia Yu truly loved him. I don't know if she was joking, but Zia Yu was still attached to my wife, Liu Ruyan. Zia Yu consoled Jiang Nai and started sending me messages, insisting on meeting in the kitchen on Saturday. I was just helping Zhu Luan in the kitchen and left my phone on the water cooler in the living room. Liu Ruyan, sitting nearby, heard a notification sound. His phone screen lit up. He glanced involuntarily at the display and saw those very words about the meeting. Jiang Nai, Saturday. Liu Ruyan's mood instantly plummeted. He was painfully aware that perhaps he didn't deserve me. He saw another woman enter my clinic and tried his best to suppress his jealousy. My laughter drifted from the kitchen. Liu Ruyan thought to himself, enough, it's enough to see him happy, don't be so greedy. Dinner was ready. I went out into the living room to call Liu Ruyan and help him with the chair. But Liu Ruyan hesitated. I had to go alone. Of course, I didn't know what was on his mind. I figured he was simply offended or wanted to be alone. At the table, I said sheepishly, this is my first time cooking. I'm not sure it's going to be delicious, so don't force yourself if you don't like it. Liu Ruyan said nothing. He simply began eating. He picked up his chopsticks and sampled everything I had prepared. Then he tried the second, third, fourth course, emptying all the plates. I could see he was enjoying the food, and it warmed my heart. After lunch, I chatted with Liu Ruyan online and then returned to our shared room. He went to his old bedroom. At first, I didn't pay any attention to this, thinking that he had decided to focus on his studies. But when I saw the messages on my phone, I realized Liu Ruyan had read everything. He must have misinterpreted everything. I pulled on my shoes and ran to find him to explain. I opened the door and saw that he wasn't studying at all. He was just sitting in front of the monitor and looking at me. I walked up to him and gestured for him to return to our room. Liu Ruyan's voice was cold. "I have things to do. Why are you chasing me away?" I knew he was lying. What was I supposed to do? It was broad daylight. Liu Ruyan retorted, "I don't want to sleep. Sleeping together last night is already in the past. Now he tries to sleep during the day just to avoid being alone with me at night and tormenting himself with thoughts." I couldn't accept the fact that he wanted to let me go. I didn't want her to misunderstand, so I insisted she not return to the next room. I was so used to sleeping next to her that I couldn't sleep a wink without her presence. "Wife, will you sleep with me?" I asked, not believing that Liu Ruyan could just leave. Liu Ruyan stood motionless, afraid to believe her ears. She thought she was hallucinating and didn't say a word. I repeated several times, "Wife, so what, will you sleep with me?" This time, Liu Ruyan was convinced that I had indeed called her my wife, and she was deeply moved by these words. She was completely absorbed in this moment of joy. Her head spun as if she'd drunk sweet honey water, and she looked at me again, afraid to miss even a moment. "Where are you going?" I thought. A whirlwind of emotions had been raging in my soul for a long time. When she came to, she was already lying next to me, and I was hugging her, just like last night. I remembered the message on my phone and thought that Liu Ruyan might have misinterpreted its contents. Liu Ruyan immediately started to deny it, saying, "No, no," and then looked me straight in the eyes and added, "No, I won't forgive you." Liu Ruyan suppressed the sadness in her heart, trying to pull away again. "Okay, so I'll have to play the bad guy, or maybe I should just shut her up with a kiss." I kissed her on the cheek and asked, "Why are you in such a bad mood?" Liu Ruyan's heart fluttered and she decided to reveal the truth. I glanced at the screen and saw something. I asked, "What exactly did you see?" Liu Ruyan's sadness was almost palpable. She was visibly upset when she saw the message about my meeting with Jiang Nai on Saturday. I realized she had misunderstood me, and I felt sorry for having driven her to this state. I straightened up and said firmly, "Don't even think about it. I don't like Jiang Nai. I only like you now. You should share your plans for the future with me. Don't keep everything to yourself," I added. But Liu Ruyan didn't fully believe me. "After all, I'm leaving next Wednesday and my visa is already ready." I confessed everything to her. She remained silent. I leaned towards her. "Why aren't you saying anything?" I knew Liu Ruyan's heart could be hard, but this silence frightened me. After all, I had confessed my feelings to her. I looked at her tenderly and repeated that I liked her. Was it possible that not a single muscle on her face would twitch? Liu Ruyan calmly asked, "What do you mean by that?" Her cold reaction infuriated me. Could this woman really love me? Maybe I had the wrong expression. Luckily, I pulled myself together. My gaze seemed to say, "Kiss me." Liu Ruyan was shocked. She couldn't believe I'd actually let her kiss me. I encouraged her, but she still hesitated. I knew I'd regret my outburst if she continued to be afraid to touch me. I was afraid I'd start ignoring her again because of this fear. I got angry. Was I really not attractive to her at all? Ignoring everything, I reached out and kissed her thin lips. They say people with thin lips are cruel, but I didn't believe it. Liu Ruyan has been gentle with me all her life. I interrupted her words with a kiss. At that moment, her mind was empty. I wanted to move on, but I had neither the experience nor the special skills. She didn't even react, and that made me furious. I pulled away, angry at her and at myself. My first kiss went to her, and she remained indifferent. What a cold woman she is. Liu Ruyan didn't understand what exactly she had done to anger me. She was so worried that she put her hand on my back and begged me to stop being angry, promising that she would change. I turned around and asked, "Do you understand what happened? Do you know exactly how to change?" Liu Ruyan was confused. She truly didn't understand anything. She was a genius in mathematics and programming, but my behavior was a mystery to her, and it hurt her. I was so angry that I couldn't explain my complaints. "You're a big liar," I said angrily. Liu Ruyan grabbed my hand in excitement. "I wasn't worried. You said I had to change. Really? Then I'll let you take me. Why didn't you do that?" "I didn't dare. I was afraid you'd get angry. I was afraid you'd feel bad if I touched you," Liu Ruyan whispered. It turns out that my previous cold attitude left a deep mark on her soul. Those moments when she used to refuse to touch me I have long forgotten, but she kept them in her memory. I hugged her and said, "I like you now, let's not get divorced, okay?" Liu Ruyan stared into the darkness in surprise. Could this really be true, even if it's just a dream? At that moment, she was truly happy. I kept asking, "Okay," and Liu Ruyan excitedly whispered back, "Okay." I kissed her again. "Did you like it? Let's do it again, okay?" Liu Ruyan's face instantly flushed, and I continued kissing her, not wanting to back down. I put my hand on her chest and clearly felt her heart beating wildly. Xiao Yan also pretended to be happy with everything in front of me, smiling, but I was only focused on her. Liu Ruyan was a little nervous, waiting for what would happen next, but I hugged her and simply fell asleep. She looked at my lips and smiled, and I, feeling it, also smiled in my sleep. Today she looked like a huge full moon. She dared to touch my hand and for the first time truly smiled at me. I needed to finally confirm my feelings. Remembering Jiang Nai's message from midday, I felt a surge of anger again, but Liu Ruyan clung to me in despair. She couldn't bear the thought of me kissing other women the way I kissed her, and she seemed to be on the verge of madness. Since I can't let her go, then I won't let her go. I belong only to her, and I don't need anyone else. I gently stroked her cheek, and she whispered, "Ruyan, stay with me. Don't go anywhere. I'm still in a dream." Her head rested in my arms. I slept well. When I woke up, I found her watching me closely. She smiled and whispered, "Are you awake, Au?" Her voice was so quiet and soft. I was so captivated that I couldn't utter a word. I gently reminded her, "Don't you have anything to do? I think you said you were very busy before you went to bed." It was now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had slept for more than 3 hours. Liu Ruyan smiled, "I don't have to do anything right now, I just want to hug you." I didn't expect her to cling to me so suddenly, and I happily returned her hug. "Then don't get up, let's sleep some more," I suggested. Liu Ruyan's heart began to beat faster. She sat up to hug me tighter, and our kiss was unusually tender and warm. After calming down and taking a deep breath, I jokingly asked, "Why are you so good at this? Did you practice somewhere?" Liu Ruyan looked at me with a hint of irony, as if envious of my spontaneity. I was in a wonderful mood. Didn't I know that women are self-sufficient creatures? She didn't dare answer me directly. She'd smelled my scent countless times in her dreams. My question sounded stupid, but she remained mysteriously silent. Was it true? Liu Ruyan asked again, "I'm home every day. Do you really believe I can communicate with anyone other than you?" I replied, "I thought so." She merely chuckled, "Just say, okay, I believe you." Meanwhile, despondency reigned in my uncle's family. The entire Xia family was crushed by the circumstances. Uncle Xia Liwei sat on the sofa and sighed heavily. "What should I do? My son-in-law can't help me now." Aunt Li Maxia, a rather narrow-minded woman, grumbled, "Useless. I hope you at least make a lot of money. Maybe we can move." Hearing his wife's words, Xia Liwei suddenly jumped up with a beaming smile. "Darling, do you have a solution?" Li Maxia was beautiful but calculating. "We can't just borrow her," she said, "then find someone else who can help us." Xia Liwei perked up. "Exactly. I can ask you to negotiate with her father. Her son said that her son-in-law shouldn't refuse us such a request." He kissed Li Maxia. "Darling, you're so smart. I'll call you right now. She listens to us the best." Li Maxia immediately stopped him. "Call her to our house. Tell her that our family can't afford to just ask for help." Xia Liwei agreed. "That makes sense. Then I'll invite her to dinner tomorrow." Li Maxia was happy. She still hoped that Xia Liwei's project would succeed so that she could finally enter the circle of wealthy women. However, at this time, Xia Yu was by Jiang Ning's side, helping him plot against me. Today, Xia Yu drank milk tea with him, watched a movie, and then walked Jiang Ning home. In Xia Yu's company, Jiang Ning was in a good mood, laughing, not noticing how cunningly Xia Yu changed as soon as she turned her back to him. Today, she pushed her friends aside to focus entirely on Jiang Ning. I felt so guilty that after a whole day of correspondence, Liu Ruyan started contacting me very actively. At night, full of resentment, she hugged me tightly from behind around the waist. "Au, why don't you hug me and go to bed?" she whispered. I didn't dare admit that I'd wanted to take her with me during the day. Finally, she turned away from me. Liu Ruyan called my name piteously. "Au, Au." I deeply felt the meaning of the expression, "pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger." Liu Ruyan was pretending before, but I still felt sorry for him. I silently remembered everything she had done for me. She helped me without asking anything in return. How sad and despairing she must have been when she saw me meet Jiang Ning. No wonder her legs started to feel worse and she stopped her treatment. Now I understood that for her, this wasn't simply a refusal of treatment, but a kind of protest against life itself. I couldn't help but hug her. Liu Ruyan was touched by my actions. She thought I wouldn't care about her that evening. I hugged her tightly and said, "Ruyan, no matter what happens in the future, you can't give up on your life. I want you to live well. Promise me, okay?" I knew that if Liu Ruyan promised me, she would keep her word. However, she was shocked by my request. Did she really realize I was showering her with my attention in advance? Was she preparing herself to leave at any moment? At that moment, Liu Ruyan's heart seemed to turn to stone. Seeing her silence, I asked again insistently, "Wife, will you promise me?" The louder I insisted, the colder Liu Ruyan's heart became. She thought this was just part of my cunning plan. Liu Ruyan laughed, "Then kiss me and I promise you." Without thinking, I hugged and kissed her. Liu Ruyan immediately turned and returned the kiss with surprising tenacity. Then she whispered in my ear, "You, don't leave me, otherwise I'll go crazy." There was a threat in her voice. From her tone, I realized that these were not empty words. I suddenly realized that she wasn't just a character in my story. She really was capable of crazy things. Liu Ruyan sensed my fear and the sadness in her heart dissipated. She thought, I'm afraid of losing him." Her goal had been achieved, though her expression was strange. I added that we will be together forever and never part. Liu Ruyan looked at me with her black eyes. "Okay, do you remember what you said today?" Liu Ruyan believed me on the surface, but deep down, she was already plotting to create a tracking program so that I could never escape from her. The next morning, I woke up with split lips. I knew that Liu Ruyan had settled in my heart forever. What a shameful episode. When she woke up, I playfully bit her neck. "I let you bite me, now it's my turn," she said, and I left a mark on her skin too. Liu Ruyan not only didn't get angry, she even laughed. "Bite harder, let it leave a scar. This place is yours now, AU," she said, and I pulled away. She's a real provocateur. I, flushed with embarrassment, hurried to hide in the bathroom. Lately, Liu Ruyan has become completely different from what I imagined. She used to be quiet and reserved, but now she talks even more than I do. Sometimes she acts as if, "I know you're okay," I said, noticing the mark I'd left on her skin, and quickly changed the subject. "Sorry, sis, I have to go to school. I can't drive you to kindergarten anymore." Pei Menjiao pouted and replied, "It's fine. In the future, my brother will drive me." Pei Menjiao understood perfectly. For the past 2 days, she'd been so happy that I'd driven her to class. Meanwhile, Liu Ruyan, as usual, silently pushed the wheelchair down the stairs. Pei Menjiao's gaze suddenly fell on Liu Ruyan's neck. She exclaimed, "Sister Ruyan, what's wrong with your neck?" I nearly choked on my breakfast. This girl knows how to surprise. After her words, silence fell at the table, and everyone began to wonder what had happened between Liu Ruyan and me that night. Father also looked at Liu Ruyan's neck and cleared his throat meaningfully. It seemed he decided we were the perfect couple. Pei Menjiao continued to insist on getting justice. "Liu Ruyan, sister, did you and your brother quarrel so much? Did you bite his lips? How could you bully my brother like that?" "I've been caught again, but no big deal since my sister brought it up. Let everyone think whatever they want." I quickly finished my breakfast, dreaming of running away from the table as soon as possible. Now I'm not exactly ashamed, but the awkwardness hasn't gone away. Why did I ever hold back and not respond to her attacks? After all, she used to be so quiet. Liu Ruyan remained silent. Her face didn't even blush. I couldn't help but admire her composure. This time, even her ears didn't turn pink. She was unperturbed. Why am I the only one embarrassed? I finished breakfast, put the bowl down, and hurried upstairs. Pei Menjiao looked at me. "Brother, won't you be late for school?" Jai Nulu was also watching us. It seemed his daughter and AU had gotten along, and he felt relieved. I ran upstairs to get my textbooks and immediately came back down. Passing the cafeteria, I barely managed to grab a bite of food. Running late, I ran out into the courtyard and got into the car. Pei Jiangguo was about to go to work when Liu Ruyan said to him, "Dad, I want to move out with AU." Liu Ruyan had never considered moving before, but since she had decided not to let me go, she wanted to shape our lives her way, taking control of everything. I thought about it this morning and decided it was the right move. Now we are a couple and we need personal space to develop our relationship. Pei Jiangguo asked in surprise, "You've decided to live separately from Menjiao and us. Is that your decision?" Liu Ruyan replied seriously, "I've already found a house." Pei Jongguo took this as a natural step for a couple with their own plans for their lives. He always loved Liu Ruyan. This son-in-law, despite being homeschooled, proved incredibly talented and helped him with his internet company. So Pei Jongguo was only too happy about this marriage. Since the couple wanted to live separately, he didn't interfere. He replied, "Once the house is ready, move out, but be sure to come visit my daughter when you have time." Pei Jongguo agreed, understanding that young people needed freedom. Things were going well between Liu Ruyan and me, and he probably already imagined that he would soon have grandchildren. Liu Ruyan thanked him. "Thank you, Dad. Au and I will definitely visit you." She knew Pei Jongguo wouldn't mind. He treated her like his own daughter. She was sincerely grateful to him for allowing her to marry me. It was the happiest time of her life. Pei Jongguo looked into her eyes. "Ruyan, I've spoiled Au. It won't be easy for you to deal with him in the future." Liu Ruyan replied, "Dad, don't worry, I'll take good care of Au." Pei Jongguo left with a smile, believing her words. As soon as I arrived at school, Uncle Zia Liwei called me. Even though I'm already an adult, I had to play the role of the obedient nephew. "Au, how are you? We haven't seen each other in so long. Uncle missed you very much," he began from afar. "What do you want? Why call if all you do is take money?" I thought to myself, though I answered politely. Every time I visited my aunt and uncle, they forced me to buy an expensive bag for my aunt and a bunch of toys for my cousin Zia Yu. For them, I was just a walking wallet, not a relative. It's funny to remember how I used to think spending money on them was a mere trifle. What kind of relatives are these anyway? Bloodsuckers, that's what I call them now. Nevertheless, I continued the conversation. "Uncle, I'm at school now, I have classes, but in the evening I'll come over for dinner. Since I'm going to be there, I intend to take back everything they took from me. I'll come to their celebration." Zia Liwei bustled about happily. Okay, study, I won't distract you." After hanging up the phone, Aunt Li Maxia looked at her husband happily. I knew he wouldn't refuse. She was sure that I would come, and they were already looking forward to a good evening. After finishing my conversation with my uncle, I called home. Liu Ruyan answered. "Au, what happened?" she asked. It was surprising that she recognized my number immediately, without even waiting for a greeting. I understood that in this house, except for her, no one was really waiting for my call. So every time the phone rang at home, Liu Ruyan subconsciously wanted to answer it first. But she was too shy to stand up, so most often her mother did it. I picked up the phone and said, "Tell Mom I'm not coming back for dinner tonight." Liu Ruyan, hearing this, froze for a moment, as if she had lost hope. Am I really not going to come home for dinner after 3 days of marriage? Do I really want to stay away from her? I thought, knowing how it would sound to her. The phone went silent. I asked, "Did you hear everything?" She just listened to my voice and then hung up silently. Liu Ruyan clutched the phone, feeling anxious. She was afraid to hear the truth about me not coming back, and she was worried that I would succumb to someone else's influence again. After hanging up, she rolled back upstairs in her wheelchair, completely immersed in the code. Her fingers flew quickly across the keyboard. Soon she had developed a program to track my location. I was sitting in class when I suddenly felt a cold sensation in my back and sneezed, thinking I had a cold. The girl sitting next to me handed me a napkin. I chuckled. She seemed vaguely familiar to me, but I couldn't remember her name. The scene was captured on someone's phone, and soon a scandal erupted on the university forum. Someone wrote viciously that I was bullying the girl Miss Hui wanted to marry. Public opinion had turned against me, but I had no idea. At this time, Liu Ruyan was wandering around the forum while at home. I smiled as I looked at the girl, and as it turned out, a smile instantly appeared on Liu Ruyan's face as well. She couldn't resist and began gathering information about this student. She learned that she came from a poor family and achieved everything on her own, working hard to get into a prestigious university. Her mother was gravely ill at home. Liu Ruyan suspected something was wrong. Was this rapprochement a setup? On the way to my uncle's house, I suddenly remembered who this girl was. In my past life, her brother worked as a financial consultant for our company and helped Jiangnai raise funds. At that moment, the man accompanying the consultant took a photo of me and accused me of being a murderer. They forced me to assume the manager's identity and forced his sister to take extreme measures. It turned out that the sister from the finance department was the same girl from the audience. The situation had become critical. I slammed on the brakes and pulled out my phone. Was anyone on campus really discussing these malicious rumors? I quickly found the post I needed to delete, but as soon as I closed one, it was immediately opened again. It looks like I've encountered a strong opponent. I'll have to fight. I had no choice but to turn to Liu Ruyan for help. I called her. Are you busy? Can you do me a favor? Help me delete this post. I'll send you the details later. I'll buy dessert when I get back. Liu Ruyan replied with a touch of irony. Will you buy me dessert? Of course, I'll be back early to pick out something delicious. What do you want? Hearing that I would be back early, Liu Ruyan's mood instantly changed. Meanwhile, I arrived at my uncle's. Had my aunt cooked anything tasty? Okay, then eat later, Lee Maxia laughed loudly. But when I sat down at the table, I discovered that the food was of the lowest quality. Lee Maxia, sobbing, gave me some money. I'm sorry that I have to receive you so humbly. It's all Uncle's fault. The investment project was shut down and all the money went to paying off debts. Now we're forced to live like this. Don't be angry. I pretended to be heartbroken. Auntie, what project did Uncle invest in? How could he lose so much money? What are we going to do next? Lee Maxia immediately burst into tears. What else can we do? We're going to sell this house to somehow plug the hole. I don't want to drag you and my son into my troubles, she continued. If this goes on, I'd rather jump off the roof. If someone dies, the debts will be forgiven and you can live in peace. Lee Maxia was in a panic. What nonsense. If you jump, what will happen to me and my son? Don't do anything stupid. I watched their performance, maintaining an outward calm, although inside I was colder than ice. Uncle, don't panic. How much exactly is missing? Try to borrow from your friends. Have you already asked my father for money? That scene between Lee Maxia and Xia Luwei was a real spectacle. Xia Luwei sighed. I want to see your father. He said the company needs cash for turnover and there's no spare cash. Lee Maxia chimed in. That's just your father's words. He just doesn't want to lend us anything. It seems he's increasingly choosing his second wife, Luwen, and her family. We're your aunt and uncle. Look how little your father helps. He wants to leave his entire inheritance to his stepmother, Luwen. He doesn't need you at all. I replied like a true heir. I'm a student, but I'll never let my father give the money to Luwen and her family. Auntie, don't worry. I'll make my father lend you the money you need. Lee Maxia clung to me greedily. It wasn't for nothing that Uncle and Auntie were with you all these years. Only you are willing to help us. I'm serious, Auntie. My mother is gone and you are the closest people to me. How much more is missing? Xia Luwei hesitated. This project is still 15 billion short. I was heartless. They actually dared to ask for such a sum. Since they decided to stage this show, I would play by their rules. I pulled my aunt upstairs, feigning concern. Auntie, I have a friend who specializes in luxury resale. Let's go sell all the things you bought before. I think we'll make a nice profit and it will help you improve your diet. Lee Maxia became nervous. These things aren't worth that much money. I think it's better to forget about it. I continued to insist. Don't worry, Auntie. They'll definitely sell for a good price. I remember how we bought them for you and your cousin for hundreds of thousands. Even now, they're worth a fortune. I thought, I'll wait until Uncle earns some money. What kind of designer bags won't we be able to buy then? I continued to feign extreme concern for their affairs. Lee Maxia was furious, but she was cornered and forced to agree. I searched my aunt and cousin's rooms, pulled out all the luxury items, and offered to put them up for sale immediately. I also showered them with praise, telling them how great my aunt was for being willing to sacrifice her wardrobe to save my uncle's business. Lee Maxia could barely contain her anger, but she was forced to comply. I grabbed 2 bags of my things and left the house in a great mood. Since they wanted to play vampires, I let them experience what it was like to lose too much blood. On the way back, I stopped at a pastry shop and bought some desserts for Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan sat by the window and watched my car pull into the courtyard. She was so happy that she hurried to her wheelchair to meet me in the living room. I ran in with desserts in my hands. Wife, I'm back. Do you want to try some? Liu Ruyan flew up to me, hugged me, and kissed me. She was overjoyed. She asked what my uncle had treated me to. I laughed. To get back to you sooner. I didn't even touch their food. Liu Ruyan saw me so close. She practically beamed with happiness. What do you want to eat? I'll cook it. She pulled away from my embrace. No need. I'm just going to the kitchen and get something to eat. I stood up and headed to the kitchen. Liu Ruyan turned her chair and followed me. From the moment I stepped through the door, she hadn't taken her eyes off me. I nudged her chair slightly. What are you doing? Go upstairs, wait for me. I'll be up as soon as I eat. I was still under the impression of her parents' performance. Liu Ruyan, after thinking about it, decided that it really was time for us to move out and live in privacy. She spoke seriously. I was hungry too and wanted to spend some time alone with her, although I was a little taken aback by her sudden determination. I didn't believe it at first, but Liu Ruyan added, "I have no appetite if you're not home." It was so similar to her usual silence, but with a hint of sincerity. She seemed to be opening her heart to me. This change pleased me and further strengthened my admiration for her determination. I smiled. "I'll make you some noodles, okay?" Liu Ruyan nodded in agreement, her face glowing with tenderness. The noodles were ready. We ate together and her eyes were filled with dreams of our shared future. My father and Jian Gyu heard a noise downstairs. Coming to the stairs, they saw us happily enjoying our dinner. My father smiled. He thought our relationship was wonderful. It wouldn't be a big deal if we moved out. He quietly returned to his room. Liu Ruyan, sitting at the table, looked at me. "Hey you, let's move." I didn't understand why she wanted to move out so badly. Isn't it nice when the whole family lives together? Liu Ruyan's eyes blazed. "I want to live with you alone. There's more privacy there. Awkward moments like this morning won't happen again. What do you think?" She mentioned morning, hinting that in the future, intimate moments would be easier if no one disturbed us. I asked curiously where exactly. Liu Ruyan noticed that I was acting too frivolously and replied, "Not far away, behind the mountain." I was surprised. "Isn't this someone's private villa? I haven't been there for a long time." Liu Ruyan nodded. "I bought it. It turned out she had prepared this place as our wedding hall. Even if I married someone else, she could watch me from there from afar. Now this villa is a reflection of our love." I was confused. "Where did you get so much money?" Liu Ruyan smiled. "I earned it myself." I realized I'd underestimated her abilities. She had far more secrets than I thought. I asked, "When are we moving?" Liu Ruyan gently took my hand. "Let's move tomorrow." I nodded. "I have no classes tomorrow after lunch." Living together will help her finally emerge from her closed world. Liu Ruyan was over the moon. She pressed her face against mine, and I gave in to her impulse and returned her caresses. I felt a little awkward when she started wiping my face, but suddenly she grabbed my neck and kissed me passionately and strongly. Relaxing, she laughed softly. At that moment, I was the most important person in her eyes. I finished cleaning and told Liu Ruyan to get up, but she didn't want to leave, wanting to stay with me a little longer. Finally, I helped her up. I was so happy, hoping that every day for us would be just as warm. Returning to the room after washing, I came out to her in black pajamas. Liu Ruyan looked at me. It all happened very quickly. I could stop her only with words, but how can I look her in the eyes tomorrow? I pulled back, my lips curling into a smile. "Little demon, why aren't you afraid of the consequences when you seduce me like this?" Hearing my straightforward question, she admitted, "I'm just joking. I didn't know you were so impatient." Liu Ruyan began to beg for mercy. "I was wrong. I won't tease you anymore." I felt like everything inside me was burning. Gritting my teeth, I said, "If this happens again, don't even think I'll let you go." With that, I sat up in bed. Looking up at me, I quickly headed to the bathroom. Soon, the sound of running water could be heard. Liu Ruyan pulled the pillow over her head in embarrassment, whispering to herself, "I'm lost. I've wound it up again." Soon the bathroom door opened. I stepped out, drying myself with a towel. When I lay down on the edge of the bed, I was so far away from her that it seemed like an icy abyss had formed between us. Liu Ruyan thought, "Did he take a cold shower? My heart is breaking. This is all my fault. I provoked him myself. I won't dare treat him like this again." She felt my eyes on her, even without turning around. Turning around, I realized that I was too greedy to allow myself to be bullied like that, both of us. The longer I sat in the bathroom, the more my thoughts became heated. At first, I'd simply wanted her to be near me. Now, I wanted her complete attention. Do I really want her to fall madly in love with me? These thoughts seemed too greedy to me. I thought deeply. I ordered myself, "Don't be so greedy. She's here, she's your wife, don't think about anything extra." I ignored her presence, but thoughts of poor Xiaoyu swirled in my head. This internal conflict kept me from sleeping. "I can't sleep without hugging Liu Ruyan," I whispered barely audibly. She didn't remember that I was wearing just my house clothes and thought that I was already asleep. I quickly rolled over and hugged her around the waist. My gaze was fixed on her back. Liu Ruyan's heart suddenly fluttered, like a small plant in the shade suddenly illuminated by the sun. She realized that all her attempts to distance herself had failed again. "What am I doing?" This action didn't anger her. Despite 1,000 reasons why I should have kept my cool, I gave in. One gesture from me and the iron wall she had built collapsed in an instant. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu discovered that her dressing room was empty, as if it had been cleaned out. She screamed, raising her fist in rage. "Mom, my clothes, where are my shoes?" Lee Maxia entered the room with a smile. "How can you even talk to me? You're not alone here. I'm going to play with my friends tomorrow. What other clothes do you need?" Xiaoyu was on the verge of madness. Her mother took all her things. How can she go out now? She can't disgrace herself with cheap rags. Her classmates will definitely look down on her. All the kids she is friends with are from rich families. Social status was everything to her, and these clothes were her only face. Hearing that her son was going out with friends the next day, Lee Maxia's expression changed. "How can you go out looking like that? Mom's taking you shopping tomorrow." Xiaoyu's shoes also made her unhappy. "Son, now is the time to be patient. Wait until Pei-yu gets the money and then you can buy whatever you want," she consoled. Xiaoyu was in despair, feeling like she was suffocating in this cage. But good days were still ahead. All she could do was endure. She hated this idiot who was no match for her father. From childhood, her mother taught her to please me. If it weren't for the benefits, she wouldn't lift a finger. With each passing year, the hatred grew, but whenever she thought of Jiang Nai, Xiaoyu bit her lip. "Let her give up my brother's girlfriend. Even if the training is difficult, I won't back down." I was very pleased. I liked it when she begged me, "Mom, why don't I go to the orphanage tomorrow?" Xiaoyu thought about how Liu Ruyan and I had been married for a few days now, and she needed to renew her plans to take over my life. She had married too early. Lee Maxia laughed. "Okay, go and ask the coach to borrow some money." She didn't know that her daughter was a criminal who had been communicating with me behind her back for a long time. I stepped out into the sun, feeling the world around me change. Looking at the phone on the bed, I realized, oh no, I'm going to be late. This was the most rigorous course at our university, where attendance directly impacted the final exam. While I was washing my hands, Liu Ruyan ran downstairs with books. "Ayu, you haven't had breakfast yet," Pei Jiangguo shouted. I answered as I ran. "It's late, I'll be late," I shouted as I got into the car. Pei Jiangguo shook his head. "What a helpless child. This child has become so active in his studies lately." Liu Ruyan also noticed that I had become very diligent and read my textbooks every evening. I didn't study so hard before. I used to only think about going abroad. He suddenly became so serious. "Do you want to go abroad, or are there other reasons?" Liu Ruyan sat at the table, wondering. If I wanted to leave, she would be happy, as it would free her from the burden of supervising my training. After eating, Liu Ruyan returned to her room. Her long fingers rested on the keyboard. She was about to check something. A CCTV monitor was displayed on the computer screen. In addition to the master bedroom, there were cameras on every floor. She optimized the monitoring system, knowing that I might have computer skills that I was hiding. She didn't dare be careless. Luckily, I managed to enter the classroom at the last second. I took a photo of the chest and the stack of long books. Having retrieved the book I needed, I took another photo. I realized I forgot to bring my textbook for today's classes. I meant to do it last night, but it slipped my mind. Without a textbook, I felt out of place. During lectures, I'd just scribble mindlessly on the paper, not really understanding the content. Only with a book in front of me could I finally review the material and understand what the professor was talking about. At that moment, my father had already left for work, my mother had taken Meng Yao to school, and Liu Ruyan flatly refused to leave the house. Realizing that there was no one at home who could bring me the thing I had forgotten, I started looking for a way out. Secretly taking out my phone, I texted a guy I knew who didn't have class today, asking him to bring my textbook to my house. I also sent a message to Liu Ruyan. He asked her to leave the book outside the door. He didn't want her to come into contact with strangers, since Liu Ruyan can't stand strangers. My friend, who considers himself my friend, arrived eagerly. He expected to see a nice girl, so he was full of enthusiasm. When he entered the courtyard in the evening light, Liu Ruyan immediately became nervous upon seeing him. Why is it a guy? She wondered what kind of relationship we had, watching him from the window while I was at university. Looking at herself in the wheelchair, Liu Ruyan suddenly drooped, and all her desire to communicate with the guest evaporated. She simply placed the book on the threshold, closed the door, and with a sad smile rolled the chair upstairs, leaving the guy with nothing. When I returned, I simply picked up the book from the doorway without really thinking about who had opened the door. Liu Ruyan was already in her room at that moment. I was busy thinking about my studies and only then realized that she had spent the whole day within 4 walls. Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a ghost. I don't know what she does with her days while I'm lost at university. She tells me almost nothing, even when we lie next to each other. I think she thinks I'm ungrateful. Our lives are like two parallel lines that will never intersect. How can we become closer? I kept racking my brains over how to convince Liu Ruyan to change her usual lifestyle. I wanted her to finally decide to come out. I deliberately pushed her to think about going out, but Liu Ruyan just continued to sit inactive. Meanwhile, I started monitoring the school forum Taiba daily. It became a habit. I always followed the news there to stay up to date on my student life. I also developed a small program that automatically monitored new posts. If my name was mentioned in the text, the program immediately sent a notification. This allowed me to instantly find out what was being written about me and quickly move on to the discussion. In the morning, as I was getting ready for class, I remembered that I had promised Lu Wang to help me move in the afternoon. After class, I rushed home, anticipating the long process of packing. Upon arriving home, Lu Wan had already prepared lunch and was waiting for me. We ate, and afterwards she forbade me from washing the dishes. When she found out we were moving, she let Liu Ruyan and I go upstairs so we could pack our things in peace. "Liu Ruyan, I'm home," I called out. I pushed the door into the room and asked if she needed help with her things. She was just straightening the books on the shelf. Liu Ruyan hid her true thoughts. She was waiting for me to come and arrange everything myself, as if I were a good husband taking care of all the household chores. But I was exhausted from the very morning. "Let's get together later," I suggested. Liu Ruyan's face flushed. She was calm, though I knew she'd been lounging around all morning. "Okay, do your best," she replied. I had a lot to do, so I suggested starting with the main thing. I tried to be gentle so she wouldn't feel useless. Liu Ruyan responded with a warm smile. We started unpacking. I moved all the clothes and bags from the wardrobe to the bed. While I was sorting through the piles of things, Liu Ruyan helped me fold my clothes neatly. I was responsible for packing things into cardboard boxes. The work went smoothly. We clearly divided the responsibilities, but when I laid my underwear out on the bed, Liu Ruyan abruptly looked away, her ears instantly flushing with embarrassment. I called her into the dressing room. To smooth over the awkwardness, Liu Ruyan rode there in her wheelchair. "Take away from here what you need to take, leave the rest," I said, sorting out my things. "Hurry up, don't stand still," I urged her, but she still hesitated. Looking at the pile of linen on the bed, I realized how embarrassed I was that she had to see all this, considering that she had difficulty moving. "Let me do it myself and you rest," I said. Liu Ruyan began rearranging clothes, letting me finish with my personal belongings. I didn't care anymore. I continued changing until I noticed that all my underwear was on display. I blushed to the roots of my hair. It was terribly embarrassing. Everything was mixed up in my head. Did she really see all of this? I wish time would just stop. I quickly grabbed the first box I came across to hide my things. He threw everything into the box and sealed it, trying not to look at Liu Ruyan out of shame. I decided she had had enough help and sent her off to rest. We did not discuss the incident any further and continued working together, waiting for the training camp to be completed soon. We left some of the old things behind, deciding that we needed something fresh to start a new life, and went for an evening walk. Finally, the packing was complete. We called the movers and began helping them with the loading. I drove to Liu Ruyan's new house. She was visibly nervous along the way. This was a big step for her, the beginning of our life together. We were met by 2 security guards at the gate of the villa. Seeing Liu Ruyan, they respectfully opened the gates and I entered the grounds. Following us, a transport company car arrived with our things for Mr. and Mrs. A middle-aged woman emerged from the house. She smiled warmly at us both. Liu Ruyan returned her smile with a slight sigh of relief. When they called us a married couple, I was taken aback for a moment. It sounded so unusual and solemn. The feeling of being the head of the family suddenly hit her. "What's wrong? You don't like what they called us?" Liu Ruyan asked. She pulled me closer, noticing my confusion. "I'm just not used to it yet," I replied. Inside, I was a complete mess of emotions. I moved in with Liu Ruyan, leaving behind my familiar life with my parents. I suddenly realized that I was truly growing up. This was my shared home with Liu Ruyan. I promised myself to take care of her. Liu Ruyan, sensing my closeness, introduced me to the housekeeper, who invited us in. "This is Ms. Liu. She will be looking after our affairs in the future," she said, and I greeted the woman politely. We exchanged the usual pleasantries, agreeing that everything would be fine from now on. It was my duty. We sat down to rest while the movers brought in the things. Mrs. Liu stood nearby, confident and calm. Liu Ruyan saw off the workers who were putting away the boxes and turned to me. "Let's go, sir." We walked over to the sofa. I pulled her chair over, sat down next to her, and smiled. Ms. Liu. Hearing this, she laughed, took my hand, and said tenderly, "Mr. Pei, welcome home." Her face flared like a flame, and I involuntarily looked away, embarrassed. At that moment, she seemed more beautiful to me than anyone in the world. My heart was burning. I hugged her, feeling like I was holding the whole world in my arms. "Pei, you won't leave me, will you?" she whispered. "Until you leave, I'm not going anywhere," I replied, hugging her tighter around the waist. "What are you thinking? This is our home. Where can I go from here?" she smiled, snuggling close to me. I laughed, but she immediately pulled away, embarrassed. "Stop it, there are people here." The movers were still walking up and down the stairs, and I felt awkward that they might see our affection. But I was in no hurry to let go of her hand, even when she tried to free it. I held her tightly, not paying attention to the looks of strangers. Once the things had been delivered to the master bedroom, Liu Ruyan led me there. The door opened, and I saw that the room was spacious and bright. The layout was exactly like my room at Pei's house. I was completely amazed. Tears welled up in my eyes. Liu Ruyan took my hand when I designed this room. She explained that she wanted to create a space that would remind me of Pei's home so I could get used to family life more quickly. She herself did not expect that it would be she and I who would ultimately become the owners of this bedroom. I was absolutely delighted as soon as I stepped through the door. The strange feeling of being in a foreign place disappeared, replaced by comfort and incredible warmth. I understood that this house wasn't just a purchase, but the result of her care. She arranged everything herself so that I felt at home here. The previous house seemed empty to me. I never thought about who was responsible for this comfort until I realized that Liu Ruyan was behind it all. How much has this fool me done for her without even realizing it? I realized that I would keep this feeling of gratitude for the rest of my life. Previously, I learned about her affection from the outside, but now I felt it with every cell of my heart. I couldn't help but burst into tears, hugging Liu Ruyan tightly. "Why are you crying? Is something wrong? Tell me, I'll fix it," she said worriedly. My tears fell on her neck. She panicked, trying to console me, not realizing that these were tears of happiness. "Silly, nothing needs to change. I'm just incredibly happy," I replied, looking into her worried eyes. "Liu Ruyan, marrying you is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I won't let her doubt herself. She is the kindest, most gentle, and most beautiful woman in this world. To tell the truth, I don't deserve her." My words touched her deeply. She beamed with happiness, feeling like the most beloved woman in the world. She pressed herself against me and quietly whispered, "I want to belong only to you. You are the most precious thing I have, a true gift of fate," I answered her. We both understood that after all the hardships and problems in the past, we had finally found each other. My mother worked tirelessly to ensure our survival, so I often had to stay home alone. Because of this, I grew up more cerebral and serious than other children. My mother was treasured by Aunt Zia. It seemed she was the only one who was truly friendly with her and did not harbor any ill will. She often came to visit us, bringing with her whole bags of treats, and was always very kind to me. Later, I began to notice how Aunt Zia's belly began to grow, becoming round like a balloon. I was curious. Aunt Zia gently patted my head and said that a little person would soon be born. And indeed, a couple of months later, she gave birth to a wonderful boy. Mom took me with her to the hospital. Looking at that tiny, almost doll-like face, I couldn't resist gently touching his cheek with my fingers. The baby suddenly grabbed my finger, clenching his tiny fist tightly. Aunt Zia laughed. "My son already loves you. Will you be his wife when you grow up?" I didn't yet understand what a wife meant, so I simply asked. Aunt Zia smiled and replied, "I will be by your side all my life." That warm voice was forever etched in my memory. "Okay," I thought then, "I also want to always be close to you and my brother." My words made both Mom and Aunt Zia laugh, and their laughter filled the entire ward. That day remains in my memory as a symbol of boundless happiness. From that moment on, you've held a special place in my heart. Meanwhile, Zia Yu appeared in the noisy karaoke club, looking pale and confused. He had just come out of the toilet and happened to look into the next room, where he saw a man and a woman who were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice anything around them. Zia Yu was already a grown man, but this was the first time he had encountered such a frank scene in such a place. "Ah Yu, why aren't you drinking?" His friend nudged him, trying to stir him up. Xiaoyu took a sip, his eyes fixed on the door of the next room. Ma Yi, you won't believe what I just saw there. A girl ran into the room, loudly recounting some gossip. Everyone immediately started buzzing. What happened? What did you see? The girl blurted out that she'd seen a couple who hadn't even bothered to close the door. They acted as if no one was watching, even when she was taking her medication, she added. Others started making fun of her, asking if she was peeping on purpose, but the girl brushed it off. The door was ajar, it was hard not to notice. The conversations became increasingly frivolous, and someone suggested repeating the same thing right there, but Xiaoyu felt only hostility. Xiaoyu thought that even in a karaoke bar where the music was blasting at full volume, such frankness was too much. At that moment, a guy walked past, hugging a girl and clutching some kind of paper bag in his hand. The girl who was telling the story fell silent, and Xiaoyu, for the first time in his life, felt such a strong dissonance from what he saw. Today, he was invited here by an acquaintance who wanted to show off his connections. This was the company of the Golden Youth, and Xiaoyu always wanted to get into this circle, hoping for promising connections. He never expected the cool guys to be so dissolute. The atmosphere in the room grew tense, and everything around him seemed alien and strange. Xiaoyu's face flushed. He felt uneasy, and fear of this chaotic life stirred in his soul. His friend came up to him and whispered guiltily, "Sorry, I didn't think there would be such a mess here. Do you want to leave?" He handed Xiaoyu some kind of drug, suggesting that he relax, but for Xiaoyu, despite having fish in the pond, experience in relationships, this was wild. He always considered himself a good guy, accustomed to a different way of life. Watching this chaos, he felt uneasy, as if he had found himself in an alien, unpleasant world. His girlfriend, noticing his condition, handed him a bag with some things. "Here, take this, it will come in handy." "I don't need this," Xiaoyu snapped. Irritation flared within him, and he hurried out of the club. "Don't be mad, I just wanted to help. You're so good, but you like this girl, right?" Her friend laughed. Xiaoyu declined the offer. He was afraid of becoming a laughingstock. He dreamed only of escaping this circle of rich kids as quickly as possible. He felt that this world was not for him. He valued his reputation too much. Liu Ruyan was completely different, gentle, decent, independent. Comparing her to these people would be blasphemous. He overheard his uncle asking her for help, and that's when he realized just how capable she was. From then on, he became obsessed with getting closer to her. He believed that by getting closer to her, he could change his destiny and achieve success. When he returned home, he asked Lu Wan, "Is Pei Yu home?" Lu Wan had always been good to Xiaoyu. She smiled. "Xiaoyu, they moved in this afternoon." Xiaoyu tensed. Lu Wan continued, "Don't you know, Pei Yu and Liu Ruyan are married. The wedding will take place after he graduates." Xiaoyu turned pale. "How did they get married? Why, I won't let them be together," he cried out in despair, unable to hide his true feelings. "Auntie, where did they move?" he asked, trying to reach Pei Yu, but the phone was silent. Lu Wan didn't know the exact address. She only mentioned that it was a villa on the opposite side of the mountain. He knew that this house was the fruit of Liu Ruyan's own efforts, her pride and her success. "Thank you, Auntie," I muttered and went off to look for Pei Yu. When it started to rain, I stopped hiding my anger and envy. Deep down, I hated it. I thought such a villa should have been mine, that I deserved it more. "Mr. Pei," a voice called from behind the door, "your cousin has come to see you." Mrs. Liu knocked on my bedroom door, interrupting my thoughts. When I heard the sound of rain, I was surprised. How could Xiaoyu know where we live now? I decided he'd come to get Liu Ruyan. I looked at her. She was sitting by the window, completely innocent and calm. I didn't tell her anything about this visit. Of course, I knew she had nothing to do with it. Anger filled me, and I resolutely headed down. "Stay here and finish your business," I told Liu Ruyan. I have a bad temper, and I didn't want her to see Xiaoyu. She didn't understand the reason for my anger. I didn't want her to date him. I think she still naively believed that Xiaoyu and I had a good relationship. "Get on with your business, I'll be back soon," I said and went to greet the guest. Xiaoyu had already entered the house. His gaze was saturated with greed. He asked rudely, "Where is that disabled man?" At that moment, the housekeeper approached to offer tea. Hearing him insult my wife made me furious. "What are you doing?" He acted like he was in someone else's house, being rude to my wife. Xiaoyu immediately sensed that I was beside myself with anger. "Xiaoyu," the assistant intervened, "I told you, call her only daughter-in-law from now on, and you better not come here anymore." She looked at him disapprovingly. "You're not welcome here, you better leave before you spoil our air," she added. Zia Yu's face flushed. He didn't expect to be rebuked even by the servants who had clearly sided with Liu Ruyan. He tried to play the victim. "Sorry, cousin, I didn't know you'd become so attached to her after the wedding. You used to let me call her that." "When did I ever call her that?" I snapped. I hated him for trying to manipulate my past behavior. Zia Yu and his friend Li Meixia knew that I wasn't very fond of Liu Ruyan in the past. To please me, he used to constantly call her cripple. I didn't stop him, but I didn't encourage him either. I was simply indifferent. Luckily, Liu Ruyan didn't hear this. "Forget about the past," I said. "She's my wife, period. What do you want?" I didn't want to argue. I knew my silence in the past had been a mistake, but now everything was different. Zia Yu started mumbling something about meeting Jiang Ning tomorrow. He clearly came to ask for money. I deliberately raised my voice so Liu Ruyan upstairs would hear that I was planning to date other people. I wanted her to believe in my riotous lifestyle and perhaps even seek a divorce. I was angry. I saw Liu Ruyan move away from the door and into the depths of the room. It stung me. She had heard everything. Tomorrow is Saturday. Why did I even mention the meeting? My words were like ice. I felt sorry for her to overhear this conversation. "Sorry, Xiaoyu, it's time for you to go," I said, pointing to the door. "It's so spacious here, I could stay with you," the cousin insisted, receiving a clear refusal. "No, I need to be with Liu Ruyan. Your presence here is unnecessary," I snapped. "Go home and spend time with your parents. You'll have less of that opportunity after marriage," I added, not wanting to stand on ceremony with him. Zia Yu was stunned by this reception. He tried to play the poor relative card, pretending to be offended. "You're my cousin, how can you kick me out?" he whined. His pity was of no use. "I told you go home," my tone left no choice. "How can you live here alone, abandon your parents? That's not manly," he tried to press on her conscience. "I am responsible for my life and my family," I replied, cutting off any attempts at manipulation. He continued to mumble something, trying to accuse me of being callous, but I was adamant. "Nobody is kidnapping you. It's too late. Go away." I wasn't going to waste time making excuses. I stood up and gestured towards the exit. I needed to get back to Liu Ruyan. I had no desire whatsoever to continue this conversation. The servants were already waiting at the door, ready to escort the uninvited guest out. I walked him to the gate. The rain intensified the atmosphere of alienation. I already imagined how one day I would fire anyone who dared to show us such disrespect as Zia Yu. "Be careful on the road, Zia Yu," I said coldly. "Thank you, sister-in-law," he muttered to Liu Ruyan, who was watching him from above. She only smiled reservedly in response. When the door closed behind him, his wife sighed with relief. "How shameless he is. I hope he never comes back." The house became empty and quiet. I approached Liu Ruyan and kissed her tenderly. She looked tired but calm. I rolled her chair up to the bed. She was clearly upset, though she tried to hide it. "What's wrong? You seem depressed," I asked, squatting down in front of her. "Nothing, just tired," she lied. I couldn't believe she was tired. She was sitting by the window, waiting for me, hearing everything, and now she was worried. I could see in her eyes that she took to heart everything I said while trying to appear like a bad guy. I could see she was simply talking nonsense. "Are you mad at me?" I asked, lightly poking her with my finger. A smile blossomed on Liu Ruyan's face like a delicate peach blossom. She turned away and her cheek accidentally brushed my lips. It was so light, like a feather brushing against my heart. I felt the emotions raging inside us both. It seems that after her illness and all those public scandals, her mood has noticeably improved, and that former causticity has disappeared. I decided to tease her a little. "You want me to kiss you, right?" and kissed her on the cheek a few times. Seeing her smile, I realized that my irritation had finally evaporated. Liu Ruyan's ears turned the color of red jade. I gently apologized for my abruptness and for saying too much. It was enough for her that I was so kind to her. She wasn't stingy with unnecessary words. Thinking about tomorrow's date, she felt a little confused. When had she become so cunning and perceptive? Liu Ruyan secretly convinced herself that everything was getting better, and her state of mind became much calmer. "Okay, I'm going to take a shower," I said. Having calmed her down, I could finally relax. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Zia Yu was seething with anger in the rain. Why was Pei Yu living in such a luxurious house? She felt it was unfair that Liu Ruyan had been given such a villa. Luck is on her side, she thought enviously. This house was now supposed to be her place. Liu Ruyan was the first woman who had truly become attached to him, and Zia Yu sensed it. Why did all this splendor end up going to pay you? Xiaoyu was furious. She also realized that I'm not so simple. On the one hand, I'm still hanging around Jiangnai, and on the other, I'm enjoying Liu Ruyan's care and wealth. Xiaoyu chuckled. I'm more cunning than she is when it comes to approaching men. If Liu Ruyan knew my true colors, she was sure that Liu Ruyan would not be able to accept me. Xiaoyu was making plans. Jiangnai is going on a date with me tomorrow. I need to be more calculating. Women don't forgive cheating, and she was going to use it against us. In order to make Liu Ruyan hate me, I had to push Jiangnai to take decisive action. Xiaoyu believed that Jiangnai's hatred for Pei Yu was so strong that she would do anything. If she doesn't want to make concessions, don't blame me for the trick, Xiaoyu decided, intending to clear my name since Liu Ruyan had chosen me. Son, you're back, so how are things with tuition? Li Meixia greeted her, immediately moving on to the money issue. Xiaoyu's mother was obsessed with money, which only made her more irritated. Xiaoyu flared up, you always talk about money, can't we do without it? Wait until I get my way with Liu Ruyan, the money won't come right away, she snapped. Baby, did you get everything? Our future and social standing depend on it, Li Meixia insisted, burning with impatience. She wanted to enter the circle of wealthy ladies as soon as possible and felt that Xiaoyu's money was the key to this. Not yet, Xiaoyu replied and locked herself in the room. She knew her mother couldn't hear her at all. We moved in too hastily yesterday, so I didn't really take a look at the villa Liu Ruyan had prepared for us. After breakfast, I helped Liu Ruyan move around the floors. We walked up to the room next to the bedroom and I asked, what is this empty room? Inside it was completely empty, no decorations like a wild field. Liu Ruyan's face flushed, she coughed and quietly replied, it's a nursery. The room was waiting for its moment. I figured that after moving in, I'd have to do all the decorating myself since I'd be responsible for the nursery. But then a thought struck me, how could I be so magnanimous, arranging a room for our shared future? It seemed like a kind of torture to me. Since she moved in with me, doesn't that mean she's already making plans for the future? What would she think? After all, there's only one room. The child will be lonely, I found an excuse. When I was a child, I was an only child, all I had were dolls. Liu Ruyan was so worried, I didn't consider myself disabled and was ready to bear her a child, and more than one. It's okay, there are a lot of rooms here, we'll redo it later, I said, moving with difficulty around the house. I bought a plot of land and will build a new villa there, I added. I wasn't worried, my goal is 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. This was a long-held dream of mine that hadn't come true in my past life. Now I was determined to make it come true. I didn't notice anything odd in Liu Ruyan's behavior and urged her to continue examining me. We reached the office. There were a huge number of books there. It was a real classroom where you could work until you were exhausted and fall asleep right there. Liu Ruyan glanced at the bed in the corner of the office. She clearly intended for someone to sleep there in the future during arguments, but right now it was reserved for me. I don't want to sleep in the office, I'd better throw out this bed, I thought. The bed, however, was left in place, convenient for reading or lying down. Liu Ruyan was pleased with this arrangement. It was difficult to move, so we left everything as is. We went up to the 3rd floor and found ourselves in the relaxation area. It had everything from a private medical area to a dance hall and a gym. Liu Ruyan looked at me thoughtfully. What do you think should be changed here? From now on, this is our home, and I will do everything to make you as comfortable as possible here, I replied with a smile. Okay, she nodded. We don't need to change anything for now, and we can always arrange the nursery when the time comes. I agreed, there was no rush. Liu Ruyan added with a slight smile, I'd be interested in seeing the flowers in the garden. I knew exactly what flowers she liked, though I rarely flaunted my preferences in front of others. She closed her eyes, looking forward to the walk. Let everything grow as it should. If we don't like something, we'll just rip it out by the roots, I joked, trying to hide my confusion. Let the flowers live their own lives. I took Liu Ruyan back to the house. She was a wonderful cook, and I was ready to try her cooking again and again. We ate with great relish, enjoying the silence of our new home. I loved this life together, and I was happy to finally move out. I dreamed of staying with her forever. After dinner, I helped Liu Ruyan get into bed. Soon I fell asleep next to her, and she did not have the slightest doubt about my sincerity. Today was Saturday. She didn't want me to go to meet Jiangnai and tried to keep me, but fatigue got the better of her and she fell asleep in my arms. I woke up, looked at the time. It was time to get ready. I stood up carefully, changed my clothes, and got ready to leave. Before leaving, I said to the housekeeper, "When Liu Ruyan wakes up, tell her that I'll be back soon." The house seemed unusually quiet as I walked out the door. Thoughts about the upcoming meeting were spinning in my head. I felt like I was leaving a safe haven for the hustle and bustle. But my duty to Jiang Nai required my presence. I tried to convince myself that it was just a formality. My affection for Liu Ruyan was real, but I had to deal with the reality of other obligations. On the way, they called me and changed the meeting place. Now it was a karaoke club. Meanwhile, Liu Ruyan sat in the office, a look of worry on her face. She opened my phone's tracking system on the computer, watching the dot on the map, the karaoke club. She clutched the phone tightly in her hand, wanting to call me and beg me to come back. But another voice in her heart whispered that she was just deluding herself. "Who do you think you are?" she thought. "You're disabled, you're just a toy to him." She was afraid that if she started to put pressure on me, I would just leave her. She felt like a failure, unworthy of my love, and these thoughts tormented her. "Isn't it tiresome to live in your fantasies?" she reproached herself, unable to find peace. Liu Ruyan clenched her fists until her knuckles turned white and slammed them on the table. She tried to drown out the pain in her heart, but it was impossible. "Pei Yu is being honest with me," she tried to justify me. "Maybe they're just having a work meeting." She clenched her fists so hard that she scratched her hands painfully on the edge of the table, but she didn't notice it. She tried to find an excuse for me until the very end, although her heart told her otherwise. Her arguments seemed too simple and unconvincing to her. In the modern world, the boundaries of relationships had become so blurred, and it frightened her. She imagined my betrayals as if they were a nightmare. "You want eternity, naive," her inner voice whispered. Sweet talk, cruel reality. She didn't want to hear anything anymore. She covered her ears with her hands and screamed, "I will not let you go under any circumstances. Even if you don't love me, you will play with me all your life," she decided. As soon as I stepped into the karaoke club, I froze. In the dim light, I saw Jiang Nai and Xia Yu sitting together. My heart gave an unpleasant ache. How stupid I was not to notice this before, I thought, feeling the scales fall from my eyes. "Cousin, you've come," Xia Yu said sarcastically. "Sit down quickly, Pei Yu." They pulled me towards them. Jiang Nai had promised to sing with me tonight, and now they both looked at me defiantly. I felt disgusted by this company, as if I found myself in someone else's game. I sat down next to Xia Yu to see how far their feelings had gone. I wanted to see the truth, no matter how painful it was. "So cousin, what song shall we sing, or are you and Jiang Nai planning a duet?" Xia Yu asked, watching my reaction. He came over and started singing a love song. I was determined not to play along with Jiang Nai. Looking back, I realized he planned to use me as a pawn to monopolize his partners. The thought gave me the creeps. She's a wolf in sheep's clothing. She used me to control my assets and profit from my resources. In this life, I will not give her a chance to change. I will make her suffer for everything she has done. I will remain impeccable and pure in my actions. No, my voice is completely gone. My throat hurts. You sing and I'll just listen. Jiang Nai noticed my dismay, and it clearly lifted her spirits. She turned to Xia Yu with such a radiant, loving gaze that I felt sick. All I felt now was hunger. It's hard to deal with this hypocrite. If she loves Xia Yu so much, why did she cling to me from the start? Typical emotional game. To be honest, her vanity and selfishness simply know no bounds, and all my attempts to help her turned against me. I invested in her company, helped with financing and technology at the early stage, but she wasn't satisfied. She wanted more. Causing me pain is base and disgusting. In this life, let her fight with her Xia Yu. Let's see which one of them emerges victorious. Xia Yu was clearly taken aback by Jiang Nai's intense gaze. Di only loves himself, but the situation was crystal clear. He was keeping a close eye on me. I glanced at the phone, threw it aside, and said, "Xia Yu, it's your turn, sing." I waited, pretending to be a simpleton. They sang a duet, Jiang Nai going first. Xia Yu thought I still hadn't figured it out. He sang with such confidence that his expression began to change rapidly. I watched them without stopping, and at some point I quietly took out my phone to film their performance. This will be proof of their love. After the shoot, I took the drinks from the table and took a few sips to hide my grin. While they were enjoying their performance, Xia Yu decided to make a move. Right after the song, he proposed to her. "Cousin, let's play an investment game," I suggested. The lost guy was drinking wine, the girl was drinking cocktails. I realized the evening was just beginning and decided to play with them. After a few rounds, I emptied my glass of beer. Jiang Nai sipped her drinks and Xia Yu downed a few too. Suddenly, he stood up abruptly. "Sit still, I'll go get more," he snapped. I ignored his caustic tone, though I doubted he was serious. I didn't touch my glass, and he, not wanting to leave, drank my drink in one gulp and began to chat. I almost forced Xiaoyu to drink this cocktail myself, but he didn't even notice the catch. After I drank, I had no choice but to leave. A few minutes later, I realized what was happening to my body. In the end, I was careless and gave Xiaoyu a chance to succeed. Realizing this, I quickly fled. Running to the restroom, I realized things hadn't gone according to plan. Xiaoyu's methods were far dirtier than I expected. I kept washing my face with ice water, trying to come to my senses, but it was no use. How could I get out of here in this state? I huddled in the stall, shaking. I wasn't afraid of the rain, but of being seen like this. I was feeling uncontrollably sleepy. Someone help me. I dialed Liu Ruyan. At that moment, it felt like I was trudging through a scorching desert, the searing sand burning my skin. I just wanted to escape. When Liu Ruyan answered, She was terrified, unsure whether she should show up at all. I immediately lowered the wheelchair down and called my contact. Soon, an inconspicuous black car pulled up in the courtyard. A burly young man approached Liu Ruyan with respect. She gave him the order to travel to the south of the city. Hurry up, I saw only a cold message from the boss on the screen. I saw her for the first time, but I noticed how excited she was. It was completely different from the usual fuss about the weather. Faster. Liu Ruyan, without letting go of her phone, hurried the driver. Faster, I'm going to pass out. I can't breathe. Everything's blocked up. My body was burning as if there was a crack inside. I tried to grit my teeth and plunge into the cool air, even if only for a second. I was afraid to make any unnecessary noise in this room. Listen carefully. I'm almost ready to rip off my clothes just to breathe deeply. I pull my clothes back on. This torture is driving me crazy. I pray only that Liu Ruyan will make it in time. The car stopped abruptly, nearly skidding off the road. Liu Ruyan quickly jumped out, pulled out the stroller, and rushed into the karaoke club, her eyes glued to the red dot on her phone's screen. She burst into the bathroom. Knocking on the door, Liu Ruyan shouted, "Pei Yu, where are you? What's wrong?" I heard my groan from inside the room. She continued to bang on the door. When she knocked on the next door, the guys ran out screaming. Ayu stepped aside. Liu Ruyan's and my voices sounded very faint. "Liu Ruyan, I'm here," I whispered. The door opened from the inside. I crawled out, barely able to stand, and saw Liu Ruyan. Finally, I felt my nerves calm down a bit. I hugged her and sank into the wheelchair. Liu Ruyan had something in her mouth. It seemed only near her could I feel even a little coolness. Even her hands on my back were icy. She held me tightly to her, not letting me move. I called Aya. He came in and drove us out of the building. Once I was in the car, he carefully laid me down in the back seat. I was so afraid of losing control that I tried to find some kind of support. The cold touch brought relief, but it wasn't enough. The thirst for coolness grew, and I realized that Liu Ruyan's wheelchair had been repaired. This gave me the opportunity to cuddle up to her again. I grabbed her around the neck, still unable to think straight. Liu Ruyan, frowning, threw something over my shoulders to cover my back. She carefully intercepted my hand, trying to calm this strange trembling which I myself did not fully understand. I looked at her pleadingly, tears welling up in my eyes. I could feel Liu Ruyan's heart pounding as she held me close. It seemed to me that if this torture did not stop, I would simply die in her arms. Liu Ruyan could only encourage Aya, ordering him to step on the gas and drive faster. Ayu didn't slow down until the very end. Finally, we reached the villa. Liu Ruyan held my hand tightly, not letting go for a second. They wheeled me straight into the bathroom. Once inside, I turned on the water myself, hoping the rush would wash away the unbearable heat. I was soaking wet. My shirt clung to my body, leaving no room to maneuver. Every line of my body became clearly visible. Liu Ruyan understood that I needed to cool down, but I was beside myself lying in the water. I laughed, splashing water on her. Liu Ruyan's face became serious and tense. My brain felt like it was in a fog. I froze, my arms hanging at my sides as I tried to get out of the bathtub. Like some kind of silly joke, I, all wet, accidentally splashed water on her when I stood up. My clothes clung to my skin, and there was no point in hiding anything. Liu Ruyan stood next to me, her eyes fixed on me. I stopped resisting and simply hugged her. It seemed I had found the source of coolness I so desperately needed. I knew how to usually relieve these symptoms, but what they did to me was something else. Plain cold water no longer helped. Liu Ruyan, seeing this, called Aya. The doctor examined me and shook his head. The situation is more serious than expected. It's progressing. I clutched Liu Ruyan's shoulders, unable to contain my panic. I silently begged her to save me. She sat down in the wheelchair, trying to remain calm, but I didn't give her a chance. I awkwardly reached for Liu Ruyan, trying to find support in her. Keep asking me, Liu Ruyan said quietly, looking me straight in the eyes. Look at me, who am I? I used to hate her and dream of running away. She thought I'd regret my attitude, but even now I didn't want to acknowledge that connection. And yet somewhere deep down I knew she was Liu Ruyan, my wife, and this admission irritated me. My displeasure was evident in her gestures. She bit her lip, feeling my pain echo within her. The thread of my thoughts broke. I was on edge and blurted something out in a rush of emotion. My lips were trembling. The temperature in the bathroom continued to rise, the air becoming thick and stifling. Suddenly, the window flew open and a gust of cold wind blew into the room. The chill brought by Liu Ruyan momentarily sobered me up. The heat emanating from within began to recede. I came to. Liu Ruyan knew that if anything went wrong today, she would lose me forever. She pushed me back into the bathtub with all her might. I grabbed her hand and pulled her along, not giving her time to think. I pressed myself close to her, feeling her warmth, and in a half-delirium, I kissed her lips. Liu Ruyan grabbed my hand, holding it in the water, and whispered, "Pei Yu, everything will be fine. The doctor is already here." She held me tightly, plunging me into the cold water as I tried to cope with the excruciating sensations. All Liu Ruyan could do was wait for the doctor to come and ease my suffering. More than 10 minutes passed before the situation began to change for the better. Finally, the doorbell rang. Ayu's voice announced, "Boss, the doctor has arrived." Liu Ruyan looked at me with concern. "Just hold still for a moment, the doctor will help you now," she said. She urged me to lie still. I realized how helpless I was in this chair and how difficult it was for me to even get out of the bath. "Hold on tight," she commanded, helping me back into the wheelchair. Taking a towel, she pulled me out of the bath and wrapped me up, hugging me. After that, Liu Ruyan shouted, "Come in, the doctor is here." The doctor pulled out a first aid kit and a syringe. I tensed. My fear of needles had been with me since childhood. I was ready to drink any bitter medicine just to avoid the injection. "Liu Ruyan, please don't let him," I cried, begging her to stop it. I was terrified. Liu Ruyan was adamant. She held me so tightly that I couldn't move, looking at me with a cold, determined gaze as the doctor inserted the needle. In retaliation for the pain, I bit Liu Ruyan on the shoulder. She became angry but didn't let go, continuing to hold me. Soon the medicine took effect, and I felt the long-awaited relief. When I opened my eyes, I was still sleeping in Liu Ruyan's arms, and the doctor was finishing the examination. "Madam, he'll be fine, he just needs to sleep," the doctor said. Liu Ruyan nodded and asked Aya to accompany him. Silence reigned in the house. The moon illuminated the room with its cold light. I didn't sleep all night after that incident. I lay staring at the ceiling by the light of the nightlight. I saw myself in my pajamas, feeling weak all over. I remembered everything that happened after that terrible attack. My face was burning as if there was a trace of a wound on it. I was still under the impression of the events and Liu Ruyan's closeness. I wondered if I'd scare her, although she'd probably prefer to clear everything up with a doctor right away. At that moment, I didn't have the strength to save anyone. Depression had burned everything inside me. We were just a couple, bound by circumstances. She hates me, or she's afraid I'll relapse after the medication wears off. I'm sure it's the latter. This woman truly loves me. I thought I'd bite her in a fit of pain one last time. Liu Ruyan, whose sleep was extremely light, immediately grabbed my hand. Opening my eyes, I felt the side effects of the medication subside. I asked her, "What happened? Are you still uncomfortable?" and reached for the phone on the nightstand, intending to call a doctor. "I feel much better already," I replied, forcing a weak smile. Seeing me pick up the phone, she asked, "Who are you going to call in the middle of the night?" Liu Ruyan froze, looking at me as I awkwardly held the phone in my hands. "Are you awake? I'm sorry, I just wanted to check the wound. I bit you without thinking. You know I'm deathly afraid of injections. Don't call the doctor again, we're married. I'm ready to apologize." The more I looked at her, the more guilt gnawed at me. I knew that the next time she turned cold, I would again be defeated by her resolve. "Hurry up and tell her it's okay," I muttered. I was careless. I didn't expect us to have to endure all this together in the pouring rain. I tried to smooth things over just so she'd show me how serious the wound was. Liu Ruyan looked away, lost in her thoughts. I wondered if she even wanted me to see the consequences. Perhaps she was deliberately pressing on my conscience. Be kinder to yourself, I mused about this grim prospect. Thinking that even if she didn't feel sorry for herself, she could at least show sympathy towards me, I slightly unbuttoned my clothes. I felt uneasy. A faint purple bite mark was visible on my skin. The memories of that pain and chaos were still fresh. I was bitter that everything had turned out this way. I asked her if it hurt. The temperature where I touched her seemed to fluctuate. Liu Ruyan was nervous and silent, afraid to open up. Was she afraid I would sense her true will? Does it hurt? I touched her face with my lips and whispered in a gentle voice, "Did I hurt you?" I was sick of my own helplessness. I wanted to prove my feelings with actions, but for the two of us, pay you, everything always happens too late. Just sleep. Liu Ruyan pushed me away, turned around, and looked me in the eyes. I pulled her towards me, hugging her from behind. Instead of being offended, I asked, "Aren't you afraid of being touched? Do you find me disgusting, Liu Ruyan?" She quickly turned around and grabbed my hand tightly. "Pei Yu, do you really think that? How can you say such a thing? I show affection and you pull away. You don't love me." Liu Ruyan looked flustered and unexpectedly sincere. All that chaos was left behind. Of course, at that moment there was only one thought in her heart. Soon this man will be in front of her. He will press his lips to my own like a madman. I desperately wanted to convey to her the storm of joy and excitement that lived in my heart. We were like two friends who found happiness in forbidden things. Even the moon hid shyly behind the clouds, concealing something that couldn't be described in words. It was risky to express my emotions now, but I couldn't help myself. Words were superfluous, my mind simply shut down. To paraphrase a classic, the night and fog retreated, two heads bowed, ordinary happiness became difficult to conceal. The sky filled with love as Liu Ruyan embraced me. Kissing my flushed face, she seemed to be trying to convey all her delight. At that moment, my world became bright and clear. The light spread to the corners of the room, dispelling the darkness. Chaos gave way to harmony. Liu Ruyan called my name. This voice seemed to want to imprint my name into my very blood. Never to part, that was my only desire. "Let me go," I whispered, feeling my mental state on edge. Even the name sounds forbidden to me. I tried to avoid her kisses. Her passion was exhausting me. I was dead tired. I wanted to sleep, feeling my body weaken. I could no longer move, but Liu Ruyan continued to shower me with kisses. I was afraid that she would start again, and I simply wouldn't be able to withstand the tension. Liu Ruyan kissed me until my face was flushed. "Be good, don't worry," she said. I simply closed my eyes. After all this shock, I was terribly exhausted. Soon a soft sigh escaped her lips. Liu Ruyan was pleased with this evening. She watched me fall asleep and smiled. He was mine now, completely and irrevocably. I was ready to admit it in my right mind. Thinking about this, I understood Liu Ruyan's pride. My proud little man. I erased all the slander and hardships that had befallen us that day. He finally caught his breath, holding it for a moment. "I really like her." I like her. At the same time, the memories of the rain at the karaoke club still tormented me. In the dim light, Jiang Nai and I were doing something indescribable in the gathering darkness. The rain was incredibly gentle, just a gentle patter on the glass. Jiang Nai was constantly chasing the ghosts of her own past. But she couldn't catch up with the one who had already left. Of course, she was worried. The happy voices of the two people echoed throughout the room like moonlight, revealing our true hearts to the world. In any case, we were together. The rain pounded beneath my feet, gradually slowing down. When I opened my eyes again, the moon had already risen high in the sky. The sun was streaming through the window, flooding the courtyard. I opened my eyes and was blinded by the light. It felt like a sharp, painful blow. My whole body jerked and I couldn't hold back a cry of pain. Now I feel like someone hit me, but strangely, there's no pain in my body. "What happened?" Liu Ruyan asked anxiously, remembering that someone had been lying next to her all night. As soon as I remembered the events of last night, my face instantly flushed with shame. My voice was weak and quiet. "Nothing special. Are you uncomfortable? I was too rough last night." Liu Ruyan looked at me guiltily, experiencing such deep arousal and satisfaction for the first time. I was trying hard to figure out if I had left a bad impression on her. To ease the awkwardness, I asked, "What time is it?" "It's 10:30. Are you hungry? I'll get you something to eat," Liu Ruyan said, getting ready to get up. She knew that I had not had breakfast and, caring about me, ordered that lunch be prepared in the morning. I quickly stopped her, feeling myself blush. "No need, I can walk here myself if you're going to serve food in the room," as if I'm completely weak. She understood that after the night, it was hard for both of us to move. Having taken 2 steps away from the bed, I felt my legs become weak and everything started to swim before my eyes. Liu Ruyan saw that my condition left much to be desired. She quickly rolled up a wheelchair, but I refused, making my way to the bathroom in short steps. She looked at me with obvious concern. Despite my weakness, in my soul I was full of a strange, new pride. I had to endure the aching pain in order to quickly lock myself in the bathroom and look at myself in the mirror. I was in such a state that I didn't even notice how the reflection in the mirror changed. Images of her past life came to mind when she worked tirelessly until the very end. Liu Ruyan had finally become mine, my true wife. Looking at the clean clothes she had prepared for me, I realized that she belonged only to me. I knew it was Liu Ruyan who had been caring for me all night. The thought filled my heart with warmth and deep gratitude. I want to love Liu Ruyan and our unborn child until my last breath. I will never let her feel alone again. Fate itself must have taken pity on my previous foolishness, giving me a chance for rebirth. Now I will correct my mistakes. "Pei Yu, are you ready?" I asked myself. Liu Ruyan waited by the bathroom door, afraid something would happen to me. When it became quiet inside, she calmed down and changed her clothes too. I couldn't help but think, "Pei Yu, do you regret anything? Will you blame yourself? Will you do something stupid in the future?" I promised myself to remember this moment and not make the mistakes of the past. I heard my voice. It no longer sounded sad as before. The long conversation with myself had finally released the tension. As long as I don't regret what I did, she will love me forever and I will never hurt her. The bathroom door opened and I walked out with a genuine smile. Liu Ruyan happily took my hand and we walked out of the room together. "Madam, everything is ready. Dinner is already on the table," the housekeeper said with a smile, pointing towards the kitchen. I felt ashamed. The maid's words were so blunt, although we had just woken up. Liu Ruyan, noticing my embarrassment, smiled and said, "Let's go, it's time for lunch." I followed Liu Ruyan into the dining room and sat next to her. Mrs. Liu, our assistant, watched us and smiled contentedly. She had been living here for 2 years. The house was often empty, and she was responsible for keeping it spotlessly clean. Her son was seriously ill, and only thanks to this work and Liu Ruyan's generosity was she able to pay for his treatment. Therefore, she was infinitely devoted to her mistress. Liu Ruyan found her herself when she was in desperate need of help. The woman thought that her son would not live even a few years, tormented by pain, but fate decreed otherwise. It reminded Liu Ruyan of her own accident at age 10 that left her without legs and without her usual life. Since then, her world has been plunged into darkness, and I have been the only bright light in her existence. Unfortunately, this light gradually dimmed due to my coldness, and I was afraid to even approach it. Out of respect for Madame Liu, Liu Ruyan allowed her to help me and look after this villa. Liu Ruyan built this villa for my 18th birthday, but I never started living here. I was too cold and indifferent to her efforts, so Liu Ruyan kept the house for herself, hoping to wait until our wedding. But life took a different turn, and now she lives here with me exactly the way I wanted. We had a wonderful lunch. At the same time, the events on Mount MTK and in Jiang Nai's life did not bring me any joy. Jiang Nai, knowing what happened after the rain, couldn't hold back her tears. It was her first time, and she didn't know how to look into Xia Yu's eyes now. They were just a couple after all, and I didn't plan for everything to turn out so tragic. Xia Yu came from a wealthy family and ran a company, but he was still far behind Liu Ruyan in influence. In Xia Yu's eyes, Jiang Nai remained a pure disciple, completely different from Liu Ruyan, who was mature, experienced, and bore the burden of circumstances. "Jiang Nai, don't cry, I'll take responsibility." Xia Yu was busy trying to comfort her. She didn't understand what was happening, because at that moment I myself was engulfed in a terrifying heat. Xia Yu was in despair. I didn't understand why I'd acted so foolishly when Jiang Nai seemed so pure and innocent. I simply couldn't accept it. "Are you responsible? How are you even going to do this?" Jiang Nai slapped Xia Yu. The sound of the blow echoed loudly throughout the quiet room. Xia Yu was shocked. Since childhood, he had always been his parents' pride, successful in everything, and no one had ever laid a hand on him. Jiang Nai's slap frightened her a little. She couldn't handle this alone, wasn't she herself involved in this? Now she turned away, trying to hide her emotions and put all the mistakes on her shoulders. Come to think of it, Xia Yu had another problem. I didn't expect Jiang Nai, who usually looked so pure and innocent, to be so depraved in private, but it seems the contrast only excites him. Jiang Nai saw Xia Yu looking at her like a predator looking at its prey. This quickly sobered her up. Xia Yu, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, it was just so sudden, she quickly apologized, trying to console him. Hearing her sincerity, Xia Yu calmed down a little. That's right, he was in love with her back then. Wasn't she his pure white flower? He didn't like women with a sharp character, but her gentleness and submissiveness made him show his care. Xia Yu, who had calmed down, pulled Jiang Nai towards him again. Deep down, Jiang Nai hated Xia Yu like someone forced to endure daily humiliation. She felt trapped, yearning to escape. But as long as it was useful, Jiang Nai endured. What's done is done, she thought, resigned to her fate. Satisfied with her answer, Xia Yu became gentle and kind again. He pulled her close, finally establishing her status as his girlfriend. She began trying to erase her previous plans from her life. She no longer wanted to go abroad, she wanted to stay here. Now that they had become so close, Jiang Nai doubted she would ever leave. She wanted to tell Xia Yu that her plans for the future had changed. Xia Yu was overjoyed to hear this. He hoped she would leave as soon as possible to complete her studies. I don't want to drag you back because of me. As long as I'm in your heart, that's enough. Xia Yu played the role of a sincerely loving guy who supposedly doesn't care about his own interests. Jiang Nai was naturally touched. Oh, you're too kind, she whispered, hugging him. Don't worry, I'll never hurt you. You can succeed anywhere. I believe you'll overcome all the difficulties abroad. Xia Yu's eyes were filled with emotion, but deep down he was worried. There are still too few specialists in the domestic computer industry. If you stay here, you'll miss out on opportunities, he insisted. Perhaps studying abroad would have given her more freedom and helped her become more creative. This was true, but China also had its own supreme god of computer security, who recently shone in a competition. He defeated the best hackers in the world and became the champion. Jiang Nai sincerely admired this mysterious genius, who remained in China and became a legend. Xia Yu thought he could compete with him, but he knew he was a bit late. This hacker was too mysterious. After the competition, he seemed to disappear. If you find out where he is, let me know. Perhaps his advice could help us succeed, Xia Yu said. Really, what's his name? Xia Yu was extremely intrigued. He was eager to find out who was behind that famous name. After all, online, it was just a string of characters. His name is Dai-O, Jiang Nai replied, although the name sounded rather strange. But this genius's status was undeniable. Jiang Nai's tone betrayed her deep reverence for him. She fantasized about meeting him one day. Xia Yu only chuckled in response. He knew little about Jiang Nai's connections, but he knew that if she didn't leave, his plans might go to waste. This genius was in China, but his whereabouts are a mystery. Perhaps no one will ever know the truth. I don't want to hold you back, I want you to develop. Xia Yu continued to play the role of a caring guy. He tried hard to persuade her to leave, but Jiang Nai was surprisingly stubborn. She decided she wouldn't change her mind. Since she'd firmly decided to stay in China, she'd been thinking deeply about her future. Don't worry, we will be happy. Jiang Nai was very pleased with how their relationship was developing. What was going through their heads? It seemed Jiang Nai had thought everything through in advance. Xia Yu gradually began to despise Jiang Nai. Now that she imagined herself important, she only became more annoying. Where does she get so much self-confidence? If it weren't for her looks, who would need her? Xia Yu packed his things, left the room, and demonstratively refused the gift she had prepared. After lunch with Liu Ruyan, a sudden thought came to my mind. I grabbed the car keys. Liu Ruyan, I'll be gone for a while, I'll be back soon, I said and hurried into the courtyard. I drove away and Liu Ruyan watched my car disappear from view. She was upset, but she couldn't help it, we were different. He couldn't walk like me, he couldn't carry me in his arms. He couldn't run around like crazy and take me wherever I wanted. He used to be unable to walk, but he made many changes in his life. Gradually, he got used to it. And now, being with me, he realized how much he'd missed out on. There are things we simply can't do together. My car stopped at the pharmacy. We didn't take any precautions last night. What if I'm pregnant? I'm still a student, even if it's only my 3rd year. But I want our child, if we have one, to grow up in normal conditions. I felt incredibly awkward going into the pharmacy. I muttered to the salesman what I needed. The salesman, an older man, looked at me with understanding. He smiled good-naturedly and pointed to the necessary goods stacked on the shelf. I looked with relief at the door leading to the courtyard. I felt like a thief hiding his loot in his pocket. I paced nervously, trying to control the trembling in my hands. I couldn't bear to look at myself, but I could feel how agitated I was. My biggest fear was that Liu Ruyan would see me buying. Wouldn't that be a clear hint that I was hungry for intimacy? "What are you so afraid of?" Liu Ruyan's voice came from right behind me, startling me. The bag fell from my hands, its contents scattering across the ground. I panicked and began frantically explaining. Liu Ruyan saw what had fallen out of the bag. He was slightly disappointed. Apparently Pei Yu wasn't ready to become a mother yet. But quickly coming to his senses, he realized that Pei Yu was still very young. It was only natural that she didn't want a child so early. I looked at his lonely, retreating back, and throwing aside my shame, took Liu Ruyan's hand. Liu Ruyan looked at me and I smiled back. He didn't say anything or push me away, so holding hands, we walked into the house. "Sir, you're back." The woman looking after the house pushed the wheelchair into the yard. Seeing us walking hand in hand, she laughed happily. Liu Ruyan, embarrassed by such attention, blushed slightly. He released my hand and, trying to remain calm, rolled the chair into the house. Entering the house, Liu Ruyan surveyed the softly lit room. He had designed this space himself, choosing every piece of wood and every interior detail. Liu Ruyan moved silently around the room. I noticed him heading toward the balcony, and my gaze involuntarily followed him, unable to tear itself away. Deep down, I chuckled softly. This feeling of sacred closeness awakened something new within me. I suggested that Liu Ruyan go into the study and read. Suddenly, the room felt cramped and it became difficult to breathe. If I'd known how that trip to the pharmacy would end, I wouldn't have bought anything. It was incredibly awkward. He maintained an outward calm but responded quickly to my suggestion, pushed the chair towards me. I quickly rolled him out of the room as if some monster was lurking there. I wanted to escape from here immediately. I was standing by the bookshelf, sorting through the spines, and asked with a laugh, "What book do you want to read? Do you want me to help you get it?" "No, don't you understand?" he answered quietly. "Yesterday's event brought me sweetness, but I still felt poisoned. Something sat in my heart like a splinter that I couldn't fully clarify. He will never forgive whoever hurt me. If he hadn't shown up yesterday on time, the consequences would have been dire. I didn't even want to think about it." His fingers flew across the keyboard, hacking into the karaoke club's monitoring system. He took me there. The security footage clearly showed Jiang Nai entering the room with us during the rain. About 10 minutes later, I was inside too. Soon after, I ran out of the room toward the bathroom. There I stayed until he came and took me away. This proved that I was poisoned in that very room, and yet only Xia Yu and Jiang Nai were there. Either one of the two was guilty, or they were acting together to harm me. Liu Ruyan turned his attention to the footage from the cameras inside the room itself. He discovered that after I left, Xia Yu and Jiang Nai still hadn't left the room. They didn't appear in the corridors until he came for me. It was difficult to identify the demon from these footage alone, so Liu Ruyan decided to hack into the club's surveillance system again. This time, he studied the archive of records from the room where Xia Yu and the others were sitting, up until yesterday. Soon Liu Ruyan discovered a shocking fact.